Our story begins on day 5691 since the disaster occurred. In the unraked dungeon Black Tomb, our protagonist, Kim Jun-woo, who was the leader, slowly regains consciousness, hearing his comrade repeatedly trying to wake him up. His comrade shouts at him to snap out of it and open his eyes, while losing blood rapidly. Yet Jun-woo manages to open his eyes and ask what happened to the subjugation. One of his comrades cries and reports to him that the Gigantiana subjugation was a success. He laughs weakly upon hearing that they did it, knowing that Gigantiana is a monster on an entirely different level from the ones they had defeated so far. It took 3 years to capture that beast, and hundreds of members were sacrificed. But in the end, they succeeded. His comrades, with tears in their eyes, shout at him not to lose consciousness and to hold on because the medical team is almost there. This makes him wonder if they think he is a fool, knowing that half of his body is lying over there. He then tells the vice leader of their team to take care of the rest of the group, and to tell them that finally, to those who went ahead, he can say he was sorry. Slowly he loses consciousness, and the voice of his comrade worriedly calling his name fades away. Kim Jun-woo is the first hunter of South Korea and the one who established the subjugation system. He bravely met his end in the fight against Gigantiana, the most powerful and terrifying monster. But now, someone is slapping the back of his head. One of his classmates reminds him that he told him to refill the hot pot every time he was on break. The man adds that he didn't even get them any bread, and asks if he is planning to starve them to death, or if they need to knock some sense into him. This makes Jun-woo think that he doesn't understand why he became their lackey, when he was once the great hero. Days before, after he died, he heard someone telling him that his sacrifice was futile. He noticed that his body wasn't responding, making him wonder if he was really dead. The voice then tells him that although he may be dead, they continue to exist, and now there is no one strong enough to stop them. Jun-woo shouts at the voice not to talk nonsense, and asks if they think his comrades are just idiots who depended solely on him. He shouts that it wasn't his sword that defeated them, but the subjugation system, meticulously built to handle every scenario. He adds that their weaknesses, strategies suited to each individual, and the mastery of combat skills were all things he carefully developed step by step through his battle experiences. He warns the voice to be prepared, because, in the future, there will be hunters who are stronger and fight more efficiently than he ever could. The voice calmly responds that his words are not bad, and that in 42 years he would return. Until then, the voice hopes the world Jun-woo spoke of will become a reality. Jun-woo confidently shouts back that by that time, the voice will be no better than a cockroach crawling on the street. He then wakes up and feels a sharp pain in his head. Looking around, he wonders what it is, where he is, and if he is in a hospital. He knows that he clearly thought he died fighting Gigantiana. He notices himself in the table mirror at his side and pinches his face, wondering if he has become younger again. However, he realizes that he doesn't look like how he did as a child, making him wonder what on earth is going on. Someone then knocks on his room door, and the light turns on as people walk inside. A man with a doctor approaches him, and the man introduces himself as an investigator. The investigator asks if it is all right to ask Jun-woo a few questions regarding the case, but Jun-woo simply asks if it is a case. Investigation. The investigator asks if he is Kim Jun-woo, born on 350303, and if he is 17 years old that year. However, Jun-woo replies no, and tells the investigator that he was born in 1975, the year of the rabbit, shocking both the investigator and the doctor. The investigator then asks if Jun-woo recalls the events leading up to the accident, and he replies that he suffered significant injuries while taking down Gigantiana in the Black Tomb dungeon. This shocks and confuses both the investigator and the doctor. The investigator whisperingly asks the doctor if Jun-woo is truly in a stable condition, and tells the doctor that his statements don't make sense from a medical perspective. The doctor reminds the investigator that, as he mentioned earlier, Jun-woo needs to focus on resting. Yet, the investigator asks if Jun-woo really believes he is that hunter, Kim Jun-woo. Hours later, the doctor replies that it is not uncommon for short-term memory loss to follow a major accident, and that in extreme cases delusions may blur the line between reality and imagination. He heard them and asked what exactly the situation was, making the investigator realize that he didn't remember anything. The investigator then told him that he had been ambushed by Bangsoni yesterday, but the problem was that it happened at dawn, so there were no witnesses, and it wasn't caught on CCTV. The investigator asked him if he remembered anything about the incident, but he remained speechless, making the investigator sigh. The investigator then gave him his card, saying they should call it a day for now, and asking him to contact him if he remembered anything later, to which he agreed. The doctor then told him that he would leave now and that Jun-woo should rest, but Jun-woo stopped him and asked if he could tell him what year it was. The doctor looked at him for a moment and replied that it was March 1, 2051, which shocked him. He immediately stood up in disbelief and swung his curtain aside to look outside. He was then shocked to see what was outside, remembering that Seoul had been a ghost town, left in ruins from battles with monsters and overrun with homeless wanderers and refugees suffering from diseases and starvation. He couldn't believe it had changed so much. Seeing a clean and organized city in front of him, he noticed tall buildings and healthy families in the park, making him laugh softly with tears in his eyes as he thought that, with all that, he couldn't help but believe it. He watched the peaceful place and the happy people playing, smiling as he wondered if everyone was still alive, remembering his old friends, Inbeo, Sokdu, Wushik, and Yunhee. He guessed they must all be together by now, since it had been 42 years, and realized that it had been exactly 42 years since then. The hospital building then shook, and an announcement warned everyone that an incident was occurring and that a major crisis at Gaian University Hospital had emerged. He looked outside and saw a dungeon gate opening, with people running away in fear. He immediately ran outside, wondering if he was lucky because he would get to see the upgraded subjugation system after 42 years. He was excited to see how much it had improved. When he got outside, he was surprised to see a swarm of people and asked what was going on. He then heard the soldier captain reporting that an advanced hunter would be participating in the subjugation, and that for everyone's safety, they should stay outside the safety line and maintain a safe distance. The captain added that in 10 minutes, they would lure the monster out of the dungeon, which shocked Junwoo even more. He couldn't believe they were going to take the monster outside the dungeon. 42 years ago, he had asked his comrades if they knew that once the monster started coming out of the dungeon, they would lose a lot from that point on. He told them that it was common for a city to be destroyed by a single monster and, in severe cases, for an entire country to be wiped out. However, he stressed that subjugations must be carried out inside the dungeon, because it was the most fundamental and absolutely essential rule. He had shouted at them to remember this, and they had all replied yes. Back in the present, he forcefully squeezed himself into the crowd, calling them crazy bastards. But then he saw people inside the zone setting up cameras, and a reporter asking if they had the mic. He shouted at them, asking what they were doing and if they were insane for making monsters come out of the dungeon. He furiously told them that monster hunts weren't child's play, and gathering people for such nonsense could harm them. Yet he was interrupted when the people around him started screaming and happily cheering for Gounche. A car then stopped inside the zone, and a lady stepped out of it. The crowd loudly called her to get her attention while repeatedly taking pictures. He wondered if she was a modern hunter, and noticed that she was younger than he had expected, making him curious about her skills. She approached the gate and connected with her system, which accessed the Unified Subjugation Support System of the Abilities Dimension Management Association. It showed that she was a B-rank hunter. The soldier captain then informed everyone that the monster was coming out of the dungeon. The dungeon gate began to release a strong power, and a monster with huge feet and teeth emerged. The monster faced Unke, who used her magic frost category power, crystallizing her sword. The monster growled loudly and immediately tried to bite her, but she easily dodged and slashed it with her magical sword, hitting it with ice. Everyone was amazed, thinking she was cool because her movements looked like dancing. A kid who witnessed it told his father that when he grew up, he wanted to be a hunter who protects people, to which his father agreed, making Junwoo smile. Yunkai then jumped, aimed her sword at the monster below her, and released a sharp crystals directly at it. Her attack hit the monster perfectly. The monster tried to stand up but couldn't and collapsed. Everyone cheered loudly for her, while Junwoo stood stunned and awkwardly laughed. But then his expression changed as he said, "That's not it," and furiously asked if this was what they now called a purge. He realized that everything is a mess. There is a rookie hunter dressed like a celebrity who only relies on skills to fight. The backup team is slacking off, not even supporting from the rear. The most unbearable thing for him is conducting the subjugation, a real-life situation full of all kinds of variables, on a street crowded with civilians. He snaps and kicks one of the cameras. A soldier shouts at him, telling him that it's enough and asking what he's doing. But he furiously asks them back what the hell they think they're doing, pulling a monster out of the dungeon. He demands to know if they're insane, and if they don't realize that a monster leaving a dungeon could go berserk if it fails to adapt to that dimension. He continues, shouting at them about what would happen if the monster activated a skill amidst the crowd and it went astray, or if the monster had unexpected traits beyond the provided information. He then yells that the rear position is completely exposed, and asks them once again if this is what they call a subjugation, when at this rate, it's just a street performance. Suddenly, Yunchi speaks up and asks him if he's from the academy, making him notice that she's the one from earlier. She tells him that all of this was content they learned in class, the rules of subjugation, the process, and the positioning. She adds that his enthusiasm is great, but warns him not to think everything is covered in class, because the field is different from what a student imagines. But he asks her sharply if she just called it the field, and stares at her furiously, asking how dare she bring up the field in front of him. She is stunned, frozen in fear, as she sees his eyes and the aura he exudes. Her bodyguards step in to stop him from approaching her, telling him that he can't act like that here. He then asks her if her name is Go Unche, and tells her that, with her level of skill, she should be ashamed to call herself a hunter. She teasingly replies that it seems like school life must have been tough for him, leaving him confused. A moment later, he is back near the hospital, sitting in the park, and remembering the monster's voice. He frustratingly thinks that it's all over. He notices that the hunter's skills are worse than even the weakest hunters from 30 years ago. With the subjugation system shattered, he realizes that if Gigantiana is revived, it will spell the end for them all. He knows he needs to prepare starting now, but wonders who would believe him. He suddenly remembers his squad members, knowing they would believe him if he could somehow manage to reach them, yet he doesn't know how he's supposed to find them, and knows he can't just stop every passerby and ask. Then he remembers Yukai asking him if he was from the academy. Without hesitation, he begins to run, convinced that someone must have established a hunter academy in the past 30 years. He realizes there is only one person who could have done it: Bei Wushik. 42 years ago, he had asked Wushik if he had mentioned an academy. Wushik had replied yes, and told him that it would be great if the war could end with their generation, but it didn't seem likely. Wushik had said that once he retired from active duty, he wanted to build an academy and properly nurture the next generation. Wushik then asked him what they should name the school and told him to decide. Junwoo thought for a moment and suggested they keep it simple. Something like Kuri Hunter Academy or something similar. But Wushik didn't agree, saying it was way too simple. Back in the present, he arrived at the Hunter Academy, awkwardly laughing and asking himself if it was for real. He noticed that the school was ridiculously huge. Someone called out to him, asking what he was doing there. The old security guard approached him, saying that he didn't think he had seen him before, and asking if he was a student at the academy. He replied no, and explained that he just had some business there. The guard told him that if he had come there just to see Hunter Go Yunchi, he should head back because she wasn't someone he could just hang around waiting for at the school gate. He immediately explained that it wasn't like that, all the while wondering if that brat kid was also attending the academy. He then asked the guard if he knew someone named Bei Wushik. The guard thought for a moment and asked if he meant the chairman, to which he replied yes. He then asked if it would be okay for him to meet the chairman. The guard asked why someone who wasn't a student would want to see the chairman, but then seemed to remember something. The guard asked if he was the special admission student. He hesitated for a moment, but replied that he was a special admission student, even though he wasn't sure what was going on, deciding to just go with it for now. The guard then told him he should have said so from the beginning and to come along, as he would guide him there. As they walked, he wondered if the guard had just looked at him with pity, or if he was imagining things. He remained quiet and followed the guard. They entered the office building, and he was shocked when he saw a huge portrait of his old self on the wall. He shouted, asking what it was. But the guard sternly reminded him that shouting inside the school was not allowed. He quickly apologized and slapped his face in embarrassment, thinking that a giant portrait of him was way over the top. As they walked down the corridor, he saw more of his portraits, along with his hunter motto, which read, "A hunter is made with 99% effort and 1% talent." He cringed, wondering if he had really said something like that. The guard knocked on the chairman's room and introduced himself. Woshik allowed them in, but before entering, the guard warned him not to do anything inappropriate. He agreed and stepped inside. The guard informed Woshik that the special transfer student for the semester had arrived, leaving Woshik confused. The guard then said goodbye and left, leaving him alone in the room. Woshik approached him, saying it was strange because he hadn't heard about a special admission student that semester. He firmly asked who he was, and warned him that if he couldn't provide a reasonable explanation, it was over for him. Smiling, he called the chairman of the huge school by his first name, Woshik, which shocked him. Laughing, he told Woshik that he had almost not recognized him because of how he looked, and asked what had happened to him, teasing that he looked so old now. He also asked if Woshik didn't recognize him, and introduced himself as Kim Jun-woo. Woshik laughed for a second but then rushed to the phone on his desk, shouting that in all his life he had never seen such a lunatic. Woshik called a guard, ordering him to remove the intruder. He also scolded the guard, asking how they could let someone in without proper verification. Woshik obeyed. Junwoo interrupted, asking Wishkov, "What about Sunyoung?" Wishkov stopped talking mid-sentence, shocked, and asked how he knew that name. Junwoo reminded him that Sunyoung was from Team 3, and Wishkov had constantly pursued her, only to get rejected and cry his eyes out in front of him. Wushik rushed toward him as Junwoo casually added that it looked like it hadn't worked out in the end. Grabbing him by the collar, Wushik furiously demanded to know who he was and what he was up to. Calmly, Junwoo told Wushik that in all his life, even now as Wushik grabbed him, he had never seen him this bold. Wushik was taken aback by the firmness in Junwoo's eyes and instinctively let go, stepping back in fear, until the sledgehammer remained ready, its bolt still attached. Junwoo dusted off his clothes and said how many times he had told him that whether in front of monsters or in front of people, if he's going to take control, he should do it properly. Wushik's eyes widened as he saw the image of his old leader in front of him. Stammering, he called out, "Leader?" 42 years ago, in the Subjugation Management Headquarters base camp, Wushik shouted at everyone, asking what they were doing, and if they couldn't hear him. Wushik then demanded they hurry up and bring antibiotics and food, while pointing a sharp knife at a frightened woman's neck. Junwoo arrived and asked his team what was going on. Byung-min, one of his men, replied that it seemed someone had been kicked out of Camp 7 due to an infectious disease, and now they were asking for antibiotics and food. Junwoo asked what they meant by infectious disease. Byung-min explained that Wushik's younger sibling was said to be sick, and they suspected it might be contagious. Byung-min later regretted deceiving himself again, and taking the city back to the tower where he had just retired. Junwoo thought for a moment before silently approaching Wushik and the woman. Wushik, noticing him, shouted for him not to come any closer and pressed the knife closer to the woman's neck. Despite this, Junwoo kept walking forward without saying a word. Worried, Wushik aimed his knife at Junwoo, shouting that if he didn't stop, the woman would die. Junwoo replied calmly, "Do as you please," stunning both Wushik and the woman. They both froze in shock, and Wushik stuttered, asking him what he had just said. Junwoo repeated, "Do as you please," and told Wushik that in a world where monsters roamed freely, it wouldn't be surprising to die at any moment. Wushik stammered, asking what he was talking about. Junwoo asked him if he was unable to kill the woman and reminded him that he said he wanted to save his sibling. He told Wushik that if he wanted to get the medicine, even if it meant killing everyone there, he should do it. Junwoo added that if Wushik was planning to save someone, he should also be prepared to take someone else's life, no matter who it was, because that was the kind of world they lived in now. He emphasized that whether facing monsters or people, if Wushik wanted to take control, he should do it properly. But if he couldn't, then he should stop doing something so futile, or die peacefully alongside his sibling. A crisis similar to the one he faced just a few years ago. Enraged, Wushik threw the woman aside and rushed at Junwoo with the knife. Junwoo simply dodged the attack, grabbed Wushik's arm, and slammed him onto the ground. Wushik cursed loudly, hitting the ground hard, but he forced himself to stand up and furiously called Junwoo a bastard. Wushik launched another attack, throwing his knife at Junwoo and shouting for him to die while cursing him. Junwoo remained calm and remarked, "Now that is what I call spirit." He then equipped the Ring of Patelis and deflected Wushik's attack. Pointing his finger at Wushik's forehead, Junwoo activated the ring's ability, Ultra High Compression Strike. Explosive flick. He flicked Wushik's forehead, sending him flying and slamming into the wall. Wushik collapsed to the ground, unconscious, but not before activating the model with revolving diamond fangs. Junwoo called out to Byung-min, asking if there were any antibiotics left. Byung-min confirmed there were, and Junwoo ordered him to quickly form a search team to find Wushik's younger sister, as she was likely nearby. Byung-min hesitated and reminded Junwoo that if Wushik's sister truly had an infectious disease, she would already be dead by now. Byung-woo reasoned that the distance from Camp 7 to their location was over 100 kilometers, meaning it must have taken about a week to get there. If it was truly an infectious disease, Wushik would have been the first to die. He told Byung-min to hurry up, and Byung-min replied, "Yes, sir," before running off. Junwoo then ordered another comrade to move Wushik to Junyoung's lodging. He instructed them to feed Wushik and have him join the training starting the next day. When his comrade asked if that meant Wushik was part of their team, Junwoo simply replied, "Yes," and confirmed that from now on, they were in the same team, as he walked away. Back to the present, old Wushik asked him if he was really their leader and what was going on with his appearance. Junwoo replied that he had no idea either and had simply woken up like this. Wushik stared at him in disbelief, stuttering that anyone would feel the same because a dead person had come back looking like a kid. Junwoo smirked and asked if he should bring up the story of Wushik wetting himself on his first hunt to make him believe. Wushik screamed in embarrassment and punched Junwoo in the face out of shock. Meanwhile, the guard was rushing back, panicking as he thought about how Wushik had furiously asked him how he could let someone in without proper verification. The guard knew the special admission student program was meant for students in difficult circumstances to gain entry to the academy. Since it was a student who had come looking for the chairman in May, he had naturally assumed they were part of the program, a painful reminder that he would never have participated in this awful secret ceremony. The guard eventually arrived at the chairman's office, thinking that there was no point in regretting it now. For now, all he could do was sincerely beg for forgiveness. However, when he opened the door, he heard someone shouting, "Focus!" He was shocked to see the chairman doing push-ups in front of Junwoo. The guard froze, stunned by the scene, and slowly closed the door in a daze. A moment later, he was putting an ice on his face, while Wushik, drenched in sweat, looking away in fear. Junwoo told Wushik that it still felt sore, and Wushik apologized, explaining that it was such an embarrassing memory that he couldn't help himself. Wushik then prepared hot coffee for him, as Junwoo remarked that the world had really changed a lot. Kneeling across from him, Wushik agreed, saying that it must have been a shock for him, as if everything had changed in an instant. Junwoo nodded and said that among all the changes, subjugation stood out in particular, because earlier he saw them draw a monster into the middle of the city to subjugate it. Wushik realized he was talking about the incident near the intersection at Gaon University Hospital. He told Junwoo he thought he knew what he was thinking. Wushik explained that after Junwoo had taken down Gigantiana, the world had truly become more peaceful. Dangerous monsters were now much rarer than before, and outdoor public subjugations were considered acceptable. Junwoo asked if that meant they were deliberately luring monsters out of dungeons and taking them down for public spectacle. Angrily, he shouted that there was a limit to how reckless people could be about safety. He added that with all the growth in power, the dangers of solitude arise hundreds of times. Wushik calmly explained that there was another reason for such practices. He informed Junwoo that it was difficult to sustain the subjugation field without advertising sponsorships or backing from major corporations. As a result, the Association for Supernatural Dimension Management and various government agencies had become deeply interconnected, making operations highly complex. He added that with vested interests at stake, hunters were now becoming almost like celebrities, and subjugation had devolved into a distorted system. Furious, Wuxi shouted that it wasn't too late to change things and urged Wushik, as the chairman of the Hunter Academy, to focus on re-educating the kids. Wushik reminded him that because major corporations and government agencies were so intricately connected, he couldn't change a single educational policy on his own. Junwoo scoffed, asking if Wushik was just a puppet leader or something. He then asked about their other former comrades, suggesting they could join forces to enact change. But Wushik admitted that many of those former members were now pulling strings in major corporations or government agencies. He added that, sadly, more of them would likely oppose Junwoo's return than support it. I pay no interest in public service. Junwoo asked if Wushik felt the same way, but Wushik firmly replied no, saying Junwoo had no idea what he meant to him. Junwoo sighed in frustration, saying the situation was seriously messed up. Wushik tried to reassure him, saying that the world had become so peaceful, and while he had grown old, Junwoo had become young again. Wushik suggested that starting a new life in style could be a great choice. Junwoo interrupted Wushik's cheerful thoughts, stating that Gigantiana would be revived. Wushik froze for a moment, asking in disbelief what he had just said. Junwoo repeated that Gigantiana would be revived. Worried, Wushik asked if he truly believed Gigantiana was going to be resurrected. Junwoo confirmed it and told Wushik that he didn't want to believe it either, but it was true. He explained that when he was on the verge of closing his eyes and losing his mind, he had met Gigantiana. The monster had said it would come back in 42 years and told Junwoo to meet it again. Wushik asked if it could have been someone else and questioned whether Junwoo seriously believed it. Junwoo replied by asking why Wushik couldn't believe it, when he already believed that someone like him, who had died 42 years ago, could return. Junwoo then told Wushik that he had come back, clinging to hope like grabbing at straws. But it was clear it wasn't going to work. Wushik asked what Junwoo planned to do, but Junwoo turned the question back on him and stated that, just like before, he would handle it himself. Wushik tried to reason with him, saying that no matter how great he was with his current body, it would be pointless. But Junwoo confidently replied that he had taken Gigantiana down once before, so he could do it again. Junwoo then asked if Wushik knew where the weapon he had used was. He said he could rest, but it would be difficult to fight without that weapon. Wushik informed him that the weapon was being stored at the Supernatural Dimension Management Association's headquarters. However, given its symbolic significance, it wasn't something Junwoo could just take whenever he wanted. Irritated, Junwoo grumbled about not being able to take his own belongings as he pleased. Wushik mentioned that the person in charge of the headquarters was Executive Director Go Sokdu. Junwoo perked up, asking if Wushik meant their youngest. He smiled, saying it was perfect since Sokdu was so loyal to him. However, Wushik quickly corrected him, explaining that the Sekdu who had once followed him so faithfully was now one of the people who would be least happy about his return. Frustrated, Junwoo muttered that nothing was going right. Wushik begged him to listen for a moment and explained that Sokdu's granddaughter happened to attend the Hunter Academy. He added that Sokdu absolutely doted on her and couldn't say no to her. Junwoo asked if approaching Sokdu's granddaughter might be the way to solve the problem. Wushik replied that he wasn't sure how likely it was, but admitted it might work. Junwoo said they had to try and asked for the name of Sokdu's granddaughter. Wushik informed him that he had already seen her, mentioning that she was at the subjugation site near the Gaon University Hospital intersection. Realization struck Junwoo as he remembered Go Yunche. Wushik confirmed it, leaving Jinwoo stunned and incredulous. Even though Wushik confirmed it, Junwoo asked again if Go Shokdu's granddaughter was Go Eunchae. Wushik replied yes and asked if there was a problem. Junwoo shouted that it was over and told Wushik that he had been furious after seeing that lousy public subjugation, so he gave them a good scolding. This shocked Wushik, who stutteringly asked if he had injured anyone or done anything extreme. Junwoo snapped back, asking if Wushik thought he'd lost his mind, and assured him that he had only said a few things out of anger, before walking away. "Noble," the prince said. Junwoo paced for a few seconds, then shouted in frustration that he had no idea what to do. There was only one way for... He then reached out his hand in front of Wushik, making Wushik look at him in confusion and ask if he needed something. Junwoo asked him what else it could be and told him he needed an application form. Wushik was even more shocked, but Junwoo impatiently told him to just hand it over already. He reminded Wushik that his weapon was currently in the possession of Sakdu, the director of the support division, and to get it back, he first needed to approach Sakdu's granddaughter, who was enrolled in the school. Since that was the case, there was only one option. Wushik asked him if he was really planning to enroll at his age. Junwoo snapped back, asking what Wushik meant by at his age. Wushik explained that if Junwoo had lived his life out, he'd be 80 years old by now, and asked how he planned to blend in with kids when he was in reality in his late 30s. Wushik added that even as an old man, just eating something made him feel like he'd stand out, with that musty smell. He warned that it was obvious Junwoo would either end up being bullied by the kids or bullying them, because it had to be one or the other. Frustrated, Junwoo shouted, asking who said he was going there to make friends. He assured Wushik that he would quit as soon as he got his weapon back. Wushik sighed in defeat and told him that he was still as relentless as ever. Junwoo proudly responded that it was why he had died before them. Wushik handed him the enrollment application form and begged him not to be too hard on the kids. Junwoo assured him he wouldn't, and asked if Wushik thought he was some kind of thug. However, Wushik insisted that even if the kids did something annoying, Junwoo should try to tolerate it as much as he could. Junwoo didn't agree and replied dismissively that they'd see about it. Wushik shouted that he was serious, because kids these days were really fragile, and if Junwoo handled them the way he used to, they wouldn't survive. Junwoo shouted back that he understood, and told Wushik to stop nagging him. The next day, at Hunter Academy, Junwoo arrived at the first-year Class C classroom. Standing outside the doorway, he thought about how he had already made up his mind, but now that he was about to go in, he felt nervous. Still, he reminded himself that Wushik had asked him to do this, and he needed to keep a low profile until he figured out how to approach Yunshi. Suddenly, a voice behind him asked what he was doing. He turned to see a young woman who asked why he was standing in the doorway and told him to move aside if he wasn't going in. He replied that he was just about to go in, but then the woman leaned closer to him, making him confused. She asked if he was, by any chance, the dog from yesterday, leaving him even more confused. The woman walked past him, saying that she'd heard a special transfer student was arriving today, but she didn't expect that dog from yesterday to show up. She added that it wasn't any of her business as she entered the classroom. Junwoo shouted after her, asking who this dog from yesterday she was talking about was. Feeling a bit dizzy, he muttered in frustration about how the woman said whatever she wanted, and just walked away. Junwoo walked into the classroom, thinking to himself that kids these days seem to have no respect. He opened his eyes wide when he felt his classmates staring at him. They were whispering and stealing glances his way, making him wonder what was going on. Was he imagining things? It was his first day here, yet everyone was looking at him as though they'd seen him before. Deciding to ignore it, he instead observed the classroom. The Hunter Academy seemed more ordinary than he had expected. He had imagined something extraordinary, where everyone might show up carrying their own weapons. Looking around, he tried to figure out where he was supposed to sit. Then he spotted a table with a red bouquet of roses and a letter on it. The words, HHS Mountain Rose, printed on the front of it. The letter was from Wushik, congratulating him on his enrollment. He picked up the flowers, wondering if this was normal, or if Wushik was just being overly dramatic. Sitting down, he frustratingly asked himself what he was supposed to do with a bouquet. He couldn't eat it, and all it did was waste money and resources. Suddenly, the classroom door burst open and a man barged in, shouting that the teacher had called him in first thing in the morning like he was some kind of inconvenience. The man grumbled loudly, clearly annoyed. Junwoo noticed how his classmates lowered their gazes when the man entered, making him wonder if this was one of those guys who thought they ran the class. He thought it was pitiful. The man strode into the room, noticed Junwoo, and broke into a big smile. He approached Junwoo and asked if he was the dog from yesterday. He added that Junwoo had seriously messed with Yunchae during the public hunt, and was the special transfer student everyone was talking about. Junwoo asked how he knew about it. The man replied that a clip of Junwoo had been uploaded and spread all over social media, so pretty much everyone at the school had seen it. Junwoo didn't fully understand clips and social media, but he figured it meant the incident had gone viral. That explained why the kids had been acting strangely earlier. The man suddenly slapped the back of Junwoo's head, shouting that he couldn't believe Junwoo had actually pulled it off. The man added that Junwoo had caused all that trouble with Yoonchae, was a special transfer student, and had ended up in Class E, which meant he was absolutely crazy. The man then extended his hand and introduced himself as Josuk. Junwoo was pissed about being slapped, but then remembered Woshik begging him to tolerate annoying behavior from the kids. Reluctantly, he shook the man's hand and introduced himself as Kim Junwoo. Laughing, the man asked if his name was seriously Kim Junwoo. He joked that Junwoo's parents must have been something else, giving him the same name as the legendary hunter. The man suggested they must have thought the name would turn him into a top-tier hunter. He burst out laughing, calling him Meme Junwoo, and said they should get along from now on. Junwoo awkwardly laughed, forcing himself to hold back his frustration. Jusuk asked Junwoo how Eunchae looked up close, confusing him. Jusuk clarified, saying he was talking about Go Eunchae. He asked if Junwoo didn't think her body was incredible, adding that her face wasn't bad either. Pretty decent. Jusuk then laughingly asked which department Eunchae's grandfather was a director of again, and speculated that her grandfather's influence explained her rude personality. Jusuk added that if it weren't for that, Eunchae might actually be his type. However, he took it back, saying her fierce eyes were a bit too much for him. Before Jusuk could say more, someone interrupted, telling him not to overdo it. It was the lady Junwoo had encountered outside the classroom. She sarcastically asked Jusuk why he didn't look in a mirror, and if he seriously thought he could judge someone else's looks with his face. Jusuk asked if she'd lost her mind, telling her that he had let her comment slide a few times, but now she was pushing it to the limit. She coolly responded, asking what there was to push or not, and reminded him that they were both just Class E scum. Jusuk angrily retorted that he wasn't on the same level as her because he was originally from Class B. He teased him, reminding him that he had been demoted to Class E for using his skills poorly. Mocking him further, she said it was quite the amazing achievement. But she added that his father's connections must be incredible because without them, he'd have been kicked out ages ago. Furious, Jusuk raised his hand to slap her, cursing loudly. She closed her eyes, bracing herself for the impact. Instead, a loud slam echoed through the room. Jusuk was shocked to find himself thrown across the room. The other students stared in disbelief. It was Junwoo. Jusuk, stunned and furious, called him Meme Junwoo and shouted, asking if he was out of his mind. Jusuk then asked him if he had just kicked him, to which he responded by asking if Jusuk couldn't tell and if he wanted him to do it again. This pissed Jusuk off, and he asked angrily if he was having trouble getting the hang of things on his first day. Jusuk then shouted furiously, asking if he really needed to beat him to death to bring him to his senses. In response, he laughed hard and called Jusuk a little punk, asking if he had ever faced death to be saying something like that. Jusuk launched his fist at him, demanding to know what the hell the special transfer student was saying, but he easily dodged the punch, thinking it was lousy and noticing that Jusuk's right side was completely exposed, which he found pathetic. He was about to punch back when the teacher shouted, demanding to know what they thought they were doing. Jusuk was livid, cursing his luck that of all times the homeroom teacher had to show up now. He walked past him, warning that he would see him later and make his school life insanely fun in the worst way possible, so he should look forward to it. After class, he met Woshik, who looked stressed, and asked how he could act like that on his first day of school. He replied that he had been holding back a lot. Woshik told him that he had managed to smooth things over for now, so they might avoid involving the school violence committee. However, Woshik added that he couldn't predict how that person would react. He asked Woshik what he meant by that person. Woshik explained that the guy he had kicked earlier was the son of Oh Myung-jin, the minister of the Korean Subjugation Bureau. Woshik added that Jusuk was completely out of control, always leaning on his father's influence. Despite all the chaos Jusuk caused, not a single word of it ever made the news. This made him realize why Jusuk had turned out the way he did. Woshik sighed and said that of all people to mess with, he had to pick the most troublesome one. He warned that if Jusuk caused trouble and he retaliated again, there would be no bailing him out next time. He simply replied, "Okay," and said he'd deal with it himself. Sighing as he stepped out of Woshik's office, he was startled when the girl from his class suddenly appeared. She asked him why he had done it, making him shout in surprise and stammer as he asked her what she meant. She clarified that she was talking about Yoshik, asking if he didn't know what kind of person Yoshik was. He shrugged and replied, "Who cares?" saying that he had always disliked kids with no manners. He then turned the question back on her, asking why she had picked a fight with Josuk, when Josuk wasn't even talking about her, but had mentioned Yuncha instead. Mid-sentence, he froze as a realization hit him. The girl in front of him looked a lot like Yunke. He then asked her if she was Yunkei's little sister, to which she simply replied, yes. He thought this was an unexpected stroke of luck. If that were the case, he wouldn't have to deal with Yunkei directly. He could start with her instead. But then she interrupted his thoughts, explaining that she wasn't Yunkei's actual sibling. She said they had different mothers, and since she couldn't even be listed in their family registry, she was basically a stranger. He asked her if she was by any chance connected to her grandfather. She firmly replied that they had a great relationship, so great that the old geezer removed her from the family registry. This left him disappointed. She then asked him if he had helped her because he thought she was part of their family, assuming he thought he'd hit the jackpot with a big connection. She added that she understood because a special admission student like him was basically just prey there, needing someone to lean on more than anyone else. She began walking away, telling him that she had thought he'd be different, but in the end, he was no different from the other trash who only cared about status. However, he calmly asked her, "Is that so?" and told her that she was quick to make assumptions about him, just because he was a special admission student. He added that it seemed like she wasn't so different herself when it came to judging by status. Her steps faltered in shock, but he turned and walked away, remarking that all this talk about family background and special admissions in a school full of kids was absolutely ridiculous. She shouted after him, warning him to wait and see because he would figure out soon enough what being a special admissions student really meant in that school. But he simply agreed nonchalantly and walked away, leaving Ah-hyun silent and pissed. A moment later, he stood in the hallway, looking outside and sighing in frustration. He had thought it would be easy, but it wasn't turning out that way. He guessed he would need to figure out another way to get close to Yunkei. Suddenly, a man approached him from behind and asked if he was right in assuming he was the special admissions student from Class E. He turned to the man, wondering who he was, and replied, "So what if I am?" Then, 4 men approached and surrounded him, with the chubby man standing in front. The chubby man told him to follow them, warning that he probably didn't want to get beaten up and humiliated there. Annoyed but unwilling to escalate things, he followed them. They arrived at an abandoned classroom separated from the main building. As he stepped inside, he stopped in the middle and looked around, wondering if this was their hideout. The overwhelming smell of cigarettes made him think that kids were no different now than they had been back then. It was a bitter reminder that conflict could never be brought to a halt except by the force of conflict. Someone in front of the group called him Fake Jun-woo. It was Josuk. Before they could create some unforgettable memories of their school days, Josuk said he wanted to ask one thing first. He asked what kind of nerve a special admissions student like him had to pick a fight with him, calling it so absurd he wondered if he was still dreaming. He calmly replied that everywhere he went, people talked about special admission students, so he was honestly more curious as to why it was such a big deal. Josuk, enraged, asked if he really didn't know why it was so important. He furiously explained that he got in through support for the disadvantaged and was acting like he was on equal footing with him, so of course it was a big deal. Josuk added that if he wasn't under disciplinary restrictions, he'd crush him himself. He told him to consider himself lucky because Jusuk's guys knew how to wrap things up without going too far. Josuk then ordered his minions to start. One of the men behind him tried to kick him, but he easily dodged it. The man fell flat on his butt, shocked and cursed. Josuk teased him, saying he was pretty good at dodging. 2 more men rushed him together, attempting to attack, but he dodged one man's punch and the other man's attempt to punch him in the back. Calmly, he asked if basic fighting skills weren't taught anymore. The chubby man then jumped at him, calling him a little rat. He kneed the chubby man's face, breaking his nose, before collapsing to the ground with a bleeding nose. The sight shocked the other 4 men. He asked them what the matter was and taunted them if he wasn't going to get them next time. Josuk started screaming, and M said. He then turned to Yosuk and asked if he wasn't going to create an unforgettable memory of their school days. This makes Yosuk very furious, but he just told them if they were going to bring the heat, they should do it properly. With a mocking tone, he called them little punks. Meanwhile, in the hallway near Class E, Ah-hyun was walking and cursing Junwoo under her breath, angered by how he had spoken to her. She thought he was speaking so arrogantly without knowing anything. Just then, she overheard one of her classmates worriedly shouting that the special admission student had been called over by Josuk's gang. Other students chimed in, saying it served Junwoo right, and speculating that his school life was over. Some joked that Junwoo might set a record for the shortest time before dropping out among all special admission students in history. One student asked if anyone should inform a teacher, but another dismissed the idea, saying they didn't want to get dragged into trouble by tattling for no reason. Ah-hyun looked away, thinking that Junwoo had gotten what he deserved for acting so presumptuous as a special admission student. But then she heard Junwoo's voice in her head, recalling his words. "And yet, I need not fear that you will never grow richer than here." Her body froze as those words replayed in her mind. Embarrassed and flustered, she immediately ran away. Back in the gang's hideout, Junwoo faced Josuk and his men. Josuk was yelling at them, asking if they were kidding him. He shouted for them to stop hesitating and crush Junwoo, but the four men hesitated, unsure of what to do. Josuk was livid, unable to believe they were making such a big fuss over a nosebleed. Junwoo teased them, saying their physical abilities and mentality were no better than kids, which only enraged Josuk further. Frustrated, Josuk ordered his minions to use their skills, but they hesitated again, pointing out that if they got caught, they'd be expelled. Josuk yelled at them to just make sure they didn't get caught. Reluctantly, they activated their bracelets. Junwoo noticed the bracelets and recognized them as similar to the one Yunche had used before. He figured out that, instead of carrying weapons directly, students nowadays used bracelets to summon them. The men displayed their bracelets but still couldn't bring themselves to use them. Josuk, losing his patience, shoved them aside, yelling for them to get lost. He then accessed his own system. One of his minions tried to warn him that if he got caught using his skills while under disciplinary restrictions, it wouldn't end well, but Josuk barked at him to shut up. The system revealed that Hyusuk was D rank and classified in the combat armed category. Proudly, Hyusuk summoned his weapon, the Black Spear Trias, and showed it off to Junwoo. Confidently, he taunted Junwoo, warning that he'd make him piss himself, crap himself, and beg for mercy. Junwoo, unimpressed, asked Josuk if he even knew how to use the skill. Josuk, confused, asked if Junwoo was out of his mind or blind, since he was clearly already using it. Picking up a short broom, Junwoo asked Josuk if he thought summoning a weapon was all there was to a skill. He mocked Josuk, calling him a guy who knew so little. Aiming the broom at Josuk, he asked how dare he use a skill against another person outside of a dungeon. Meanwhile, in the faculty office, a teacher approached Ms. Yubin, the homeroom teacher for Class E. The teacher mentioned hearing that the special admission student had caused trouble on his first day and remarked that Yubin must be dealing with a lot. Yubin laughed lightly and agreed. The teacher then asked what kind of guts Junwoo had to go up against Josuk from Class B when Junwoo was a special admission student placed in the lowest class. That means Junwoo has absolutely zero talent as a hunter, doesn't it? He can't bite, tear, strike, even if he wanted to. Yubin corrected him, explaining that wasn't the case at all. She revealed that Kim Junwoo had been admitted under the category of excluded from evaluation in the aptitude test. The teacher was shocked, noting that this category was only granted to students whose combat rank was so exceptional it couldn't be measured. He pointed out that, until now, the only student to receive an excluded from evaluation status was Go Eunchae. The teacher asked if Yubin was suggesting that Yunmoo was on the same level as Yunchae. He also questioned why Yunmoo had been assigned to Class E when someone with his skills should obviously be in Class A, fast-tracked as a candidate for student leadership. Yubin simply replied that it was an order from the chairman. The chairman had specifically instructed that Junwoo be sent to the lowest class no matter what, so he wouldn't stand out. The teacher told Yubin that the situation seemed odd and asked her if it wasn't natural for people like them to aim to stand out in that field. Yubin replied that she wasn't entirely clear on the details herself. Suddenly, someone barged into the teacher's office. They turned to see Ah-hyun, who was sweating heavily from running. Ah-hyun reported that Kim Junwoo was being bullied by Yusek's gang at that moment. Meanwhile, in the hideout, Jusok was launching his spear at Junwoo, who blocked it with a broom. Jusok cursed under his breath while trying to stab him again with the spear. Despite giving it his all, Jusok couldn't believe what was happening. Normally, just activating the skill should have been enough to easily handle a Baron-level opponent, but Junwoo was fending off his attacks with nothing but a broken broom. Jusok shouted in frustration, demanding to know what was going on, but Junwoo calmly blocked his spear without effort, further enraging Jusok. Junwoo remarked that an armed skill wasn't meant to be swung around blindly. Jusok forcefully reclaimed his spear and angrily shouted, demanding to know what a special admission student like Junwoo could possibly understand about such skills. Jusok tried repeatedly to stab Junwoo, but Junwoo easily dodged the attacks while lecturing him. He explained that the traits of an armed summoning skill were defined by the core it was extracted from. He added that the Black Spear Trios was a skill derived from the core of Darkvor, a monster that controlled shadows. While dodging, Junwoo asked Jusok what kind of traits his weapon had, which he was recklessly swinging around like a fly swatter. The skill core of the Black Spear Trias was a gift Jusok had received from his father in middle school. Thanks to it, Jusok was admitted into the Cadet Academy and registered in the Integrated Subjugation Support System, earning him a spot in Class B. After graduation, it was practically guaranteed that Jusok would become an association-affiliated hunter. If he performed well, he might even become a student officer and secure early field placement. However, at that moment, Jusok was struggling to land even a scratch on Junwoo. Junwoo then strikes Jusok's hand, causing him to let go of the spear. A warning from the system alerted Jusok that the weapon had been detached and advised him to retrieve it immediately. Junwoo picked up Jusuk's spear and told him to watch closely, saying he would demonstrate how to properly use a weapon. Activating the spear, Junwoo caused the bright room to transform into a dark space. Panic spread among Jusuk minions, wondering what was happening. Some noticed that it seemed to have suddenly turned into night. Then, as the light began to return, someone shouted for everyone to look under their feet. To their shock, they realized that their shadows were slipping away from them. The chubby man, regaining consciousness, looked at his hand and noticed that his shadow was gone. It simply wasn't there. The group turned their attention to Junwoo and Josuk. Josuk stood frozen in shock, unable to believe what he was witnessing. He stared at Junwoo, who was now surrounded by shadows, and wondered if Junwoo had truly been using the same tree as he thought he knew. He then walked closer to Josuk, who was crawling backward to get away from him. Josuk wet his pants in fear and begged him to spare him. Despite this, Junwoo still aimed the spear at Josuk, lifted it up, and strikes down for the final blow, making Josuk scream and cry like a baby, even having a snot in his nose. The system then announced that 1 minute had passed, causing the weapon to be disarmed and forcibly sealed. Junwoo saw Yusuk passed out from fear and decided it was enough. He softly kicked Yusuk to wake him up. Yusuk woke up and immediately covered himself defensively. Junwoo told Jusuk that he hadn't done anything to him, so he should pull himself together and get up. Jusuk obeyed, trembling, and got to his feet. Junwoo called Jusuk a kid and ordered him to answer his questions, to which Jusuk, stutteringly, agreed. Junwoo then lectured Yusuk, explaining that skills and weapons exist to take down monsters and that using them on people, especially outside a dungeon, was dangerous. He asked Yusuk if he was right, but Yusuk didn't respond. Junwoo threatened him to answer, and Yusuk stutteringly admitted that Junwoo was right, and it was dangerous. Junwoo warned Yusuk that if he dared to use a skill in front of him again, he would break his legs for real. He ordered Josuk to answer again, and Josuk replied with a fearful, yes. Junwoo then turned his attention to Yosuk's gang and told them to stop where they were. He ordered the chubby man to hit him, which shocked the man, who asked what he meant. Junwoo simply repeated his order, telling the man to hit him as hard as he could. He added that it would prevent rumors of them trying to discipline a special admission student, but ending up beaten instead. The man expressed his gratitude, but asked why Junwoo would do that. Junwoo replied that he didn't want any rumors spreading about him either, as it would be a hassle in many ways. He urged them to finish it quickly. The chubby man hesitated and asked if Junwoo really wanted him to hit him. Junwoo ordered him to hit him with all his strength, warning that if he held back, he would take the punishment instead. Reluctantly, the chubby man launched his fist with all his might, punching Junwoo in the face at the exact moment the teachers arrived. Yubin panicked when she saw blood on the floor and shouted at the gang, saying they had gone too far since Junwoo had just transferred that day. The chubby man quickly explained that the blood was his, but the teachers didn't believe him and ordered everyone to follow them to the teacher's office. Yubin instructed Ah-hyun to take Junwoo to the infirmary, and Ah-hyun agreed. Junwoo stumbled out of the room, cursing in pain and realizing his body was weaker than he thought. He asked Ah-hyun what she was doing and told her to stop the bleeding quickly by taking him to the infirmary, but she remained quiet. Junwoo told her to forget the earlier commotion and that he would handle it himself. However, Ah-hyun asked him who he really was. Junwoo simply replied that he was a lowly special admission student who got what he deserved for acting out of line. Ah-hyun countered, telling him to stop pretending, because she had seen everything. A moment ago, Yubin had told Ah-hyun they would take another route while she checked behind the gym. Ah-hyun agreed and overheard noises from inside the gym. She peeked inside and witnessed everything, which shocked her. She now asked Junwoo why someone with his talent had ended up in Class E. She remarked that someone like him could easily be in Class A. Junwoo dismissed her question, saying that how he got in or where he ended up had nothing to do with her. He added that he planned to keep a low profile at the school and leave quietly, so she should forget everything she had seen. Ah-hyun agreed that he was right, and Junwoo told her to stop caring and take him to the infirmary. However, she admitted that she was just like him. She confessed that she had judged him solely based on the fact that he was a special admission student. Deep down, she had even looked down on him. Junwoo brushed it off, saying they should head to the nurse's office. And Ah-hyun continued, admitting that she had criticized him as trash, who only cared about background and status. She then formally apologized. Junwoo accepted her apology and urged her to take him to the infirmary. Still, she kept apologizing and suddenly shouted at him to help her because she absolutely had to become a member of the student council, which shocked and confused him. She explained that to run for the student council, candidates needed a guarantor. However, no one wanted to act as a guarantor for someone without a background like hers. Other candidates would criticize and harass the guarantor for increasing the competition. She pointed out that candidates with powerful families like Yusuk didn't face this issue. She then asked Junwoo to be her guarantor. Junwoo immediately declined, saying he was already busy with his own matters. She promised to do anything he wanted in return, but he walked away, saying it wasn't something she could handle. He told her to just take him to the nurse's office. She reminded him that he was still unfamiliar with the school and offered to help him get the hang of things, but he simply replied that he didn't need it. She asked him if it was about money, but he just asked her in return if he looked like someone who'd take a kid's pocket money. She then told him she would introduce him to Yoonchek, which caught his attention. He asked Ayuhun if she was really going to introduce him to Yoonchae, and how she planned to do so when he had heard that Yoonchae had been kicked out of her house. He also asked if she still kept in touch with Yoonchae, but she looked away and replied that wasn't the case. Ahyeon then explained that since Unchu was a member of the student council, if she became one as well, she could naturally meet Unchu. Hearing this, Junwoo's nose bled even more as he turned around and muttered that he was stupid to even expect anything. He told Ahyeon that he would handle things himself. He then felt dizzy and fell to the ground, prompting a panicked Ahyeon to rush to him and ask what was wrong. Stuttering, he reminded her that he had been asking her to take him to the infirmary since earlier. Later, all the higher-ups and teachers of Hunter Academy gathered in the conference room for an emergency teacher meeting. Yang Ji-jeon, the homeroom teacher of Class 1D, informed everyone that this was already the second time Jusuk had used a skill during disciplinary action. Lee Jong-hoon, the Class 1C homeroom teacher, reminded them that last time the incident had ended with just a light punishment, even though everyone knew that using skills on campus was grounds for expulsion. The supernatural biology class teacher agreed, saying that this time they couldn't turn a blind eye like before. The combat class teacher, Yang Gwanmo, assured everyone that both he and Yubin had witnessed the incident firsthand, and that it wasn't something they could overlook. The principal of Hunter Academy turned to Woo-shik, the chairman, and asked for his opinion. Woo-shik called on Han Yubin to confirm the details. He asked if it was true that Jusuk and his friends had assaulted Junwoo. Yubin replied yes, explaining that she had witnessed it firsthand. Woo-shik asked again if she was saying that Junwoo had really been beaten up. When she confirmed, Woo-shik appeared relieved and thanked Yubin. Composing himself, Woo-shik addressed the room, stating that as everyone was aware, using unauthorized skills on school grounds was a very serious issue that required strict discipline. Given that a similar case had occurred only days ago, he declared it impossible to show leniency again. He announced that, in line with school regulations, Oh Yusuk's punishment would be expulsion. At that moment, someone raised a hand. Woo-shik acknowledged Cha Jun-min, the homeroom teacher of Class 1B. Cha Jun-min suggested that expulsion seemed like an overly harsh punishment. Woo-shik asked him why he thought so, but Junmin countered by asking if it wasn't simply a mistake made by an overly spirited adolescent boy. He added that such things were common occurrences in their own school days. Yubin interjected, shouting that it went beyond a simple mistake and could have led to a serious accident. However, Junmin calmly addressed her, arguing that Yo-chuk was a talented student and undoubtedly someone who would become a pride of the academy in the future. As teachers, he said, it wouldn't be right to cut down such potential over a single mistake. Yubin remained quiet as Junmin clarified that he wasn't saying Yusuk was without fault. Using skills on school premises was undeniably a violation of school policies. However, he suggested that, regarding Yusuk, a 1-week suspension would be a more appropriate punishment. Woo-shik addressed the silent teachers, saying he understood Junmin's perspective. He announced that they would finalize Yusuk's punishment later and inform everyone accordingly. With that, Woo-shik stood up and concluded the meeting for the day. The teachers filed out of the conference room, leaving Junmin alone. Taking out his phone, Junmin called someone, Myung-jin, the Minister of Korean Subjugation and Jusok's father. Junmin reported that the discussion had been wrapped up and that it seemed Jusok's punishment would end with a suspension. Laughing, Junmin asked Myung-jin if Jusok wasn't undoubtedly the most promising candidate for the student council. He swore to Myung-jin that he would handle the matter of the special admission student, Kim Jun-woo. Junmin added that with the end-of-month evaluation approaching soon, he would deal with Jun-woo appropriately. The next day, Jun-woo was in his classroom, thinking about how it had been 3 days since he started school, yet he still hadn't caught even a glimpse of Unchech. He reflected on how the E-class he had been assigned to was filled with losers who lacked the talent to become hunters. The lessons didn't even cover anything about hunting, and instead focused on regular subjects, making him wonder if it wouldn't make more sense to just get rid of E-class altogether in a school that called itself a Hunter Academy. He was deep in thought about how there was no benefit to standing out right now when someone slapped him on the back of the head. It was Yusuk's gang, reminding him that he had told them to turn on the hotspot during every break. They asked if he was planning to starve them to death, since he hadn't even brought any bread. One of them threatened to knock some sense into him. Junwoo awkwardly laughed, knowing that, on the surface, he had become their errand boy. The chubby man shouted that Junwoo was hopeless and ordered him to follow them. They walked away, and he followed reluctantly. Once they were out of sight from others, Junwoo called out to them, startling the gang. He told them that the slap earlier had hurt a bit. Immediately, the group bent down, apologizing profusely. He asked them if they were letting their emotions get the better of them, and they all fearfully assured him that they weren't. They also reminded him that he had told them to make it look as realistic as possible. Junwoo asked if they had looked into what he'd asked. The chubby man, hesitantly, replied that it was nearly impossible for a first year to get close to a student council member. Annoyed, Junwoo angrily asked if they had found out anything at all. Stammering, they replied that it wasn't entirely hopeless. They told him that Yunshi rarely came to school. He pressed them for more information. The chubby man added that Yunchan didn't seem to have many friends at the academy and was only close to a fellow student council member, Kim Jong-hyun. Hearing this, Junwoo smiled, thinking it was the only useful piece of information they had gathered. He asked where Kim Jong-hyun was at that moment, but the chubby man replied that Kim Jong-hyun didn't come to school much either. Frustrated, Junwoo let them go, calling them idiots and blaming himself for trusting them. He told them to get lost, and the group ran away in a hurry, apologizing and assuring him they'd get proper information next time. Scratching his head in frustration, Junwoo was approached by Ah-hyun, who reminded him that she had told him this plan wouldn't work. Irritated, he asked why she was there again. She explained that Jong-hyun was an official member of the student council, making it nearly impossible for anyone to meet him easily. He asked why being a student council member was such a big deal, claiming they weren't congressmen. Answer. Ah-hyun countered, explaining that the student council at Hunter Academy consisted of only the best students. They came from prestigious families, had exceptional skills, and were loaded with money. Junwoo dismissed her point, saying they were just kids. But she clarified that they weren't just students. They were also hunters. If someone became a student council member, they were officially recognized as a hunter by the association, and were even deployed on real missions. She added that because their parents were so influential, even the teachers tiptoed around them, and their power within the school was immense. After graduation, their influence grew even further. Ah-hyun continued, explaining that the student council was on a completely different level from regular students. With the way things worked, most students wouldn't even get the chance to see them after graduation. Junwoo asked if there was another way to track them down, but Ah-hyun reminded him of her earlier suggestion. If he vouched for her and she became a student council member, she could help him. Junwoo reiterated that he wasn't interested. Dejected, Ah-hyun asked why he kept refusing, insisting that it wouldn't hurt him. Junwoo bluntly pointed out that she had just admitted only those with prestigious families and exceptional skills could get in, and from what he saw, she had neither. Ah-hyun shouted that he could teach her. Even if she lacked the right family background, she could at least improve her skills. She claimed she had the brains to learn quickly, and that her skills would improve in no time. Junwoo laughed loudly, calling her hilarious. He warned her that if she trained under him, she'd die, leaving her silent. Hiroan Kineyomo, he added, that he didn't see why she was so fixated on the student council. She shouldn't aim for something so far out of her reach. Ah-hyun passionately responded that she didn't care. If she couldn't become a student council member, she'd rather die. She begged him to help her, shouting that she was willing to endure any training, whether it was subjugation, skills, or martial arts. However, Junwoo simply turned away, saying break time was over and he was leaving. Ah-hyun chased after him, shouting for him to wait. Junwoo smiled to himself, noticing her determination. He thought to himself that it had been a long time since he'd seen eyes like hers. He began to think that Ah-hyun might actually prove to be useful. A moment later, in the 1E classroom, Yubin praised everyone for doing a great job with the day's lesson. She asked the class if they were all aware that the monthly evaluation was scheduled for that week, to which they all replied yes. She reminded them not to let their guard down just because it was a monthly exam. She pointed out that their scores last month weren't great, so they needed to try harder this time. Yubin informed them that the upcoming evaluation would mostly consist of written exams on general subjects, and if they focused on studying, they could pass. Suddenly, someone interrupted her, apologizing for doing so during homeroom. Yubin turned to see Junmin entering the classroom. Junmin assured her it wasn't anything serious, but explained he was there to inform her about changes to the monthly evaluation. Junmin walked to the middle of the class and instructed everyone to listen closely. He announced that starting that month, the first-year monthly evaluation would be replaced with a practical exam conducted in a real dungeon. The students were shocked and couldn't believe what they were hearing. Furious, Yubin asked Junmin if he had just said practical exam. Surprised by her tone, Yubin told her to lower her voice in front of the students. Empiricism, Yubin protested, arguing that a practical exam was too much for kids who hadn't even completed their first semester, especially for her Class E students. Yubin responded by asking if she was implying that Class E wasn't capable of handling a practical exam. Yubin was unable to reply, and Yubin continued, stating that the decision had already been made. He added that excluding someone from education due to a slight lack of ability was considered discriminatory. He asked how long the students planned to stay on the sidelines, emphasizing that, if they were attending Hunter Academy, they should at least graduate with the basic qualifications to be hunters. Junwoo found the situation ridiculous. Class E hadn't even learned the basics of subjugation, let alone earned hunter licenses. These students were essentially just there to get diplomas, and nothing more. He was certain Junmin had ulterior motives for throwing these inexperienced students into a dungeon. Junmin continued, saying that if the students truly couldn't manage, they were free to give up on the exam and take remedial classes. He assured them this wouldn't impact their advancement, so they didn't need to worry. However, Junmin then called out to Junwoo and asked if he was aware that giving up on the monthly evaluation meant expulsion. With that, Junmin left the room, reminding everyone to do their best, as he would be supervising the evaluation. He told them to approach him with any questions. Junwoo realized that Junmin couldn't have implemented such changes alone. Someone with significant influence must have had leverage over him. After class, Junwoo headed to the chairman's office. Woo-shik acknowledged that Oh Myung-jin, the minister of the Korean Subjugation Bureau, was behind the changes. Junwoo remarked that it felt like he'd been blacklisted due to the issue with Jusuk. Woo-shik apologized and explained that he had tried his best to stop it. But Myungjin was a big shot in the field and had a long-standing relationship with the school. Junwoo responded that he understood the difficulty of the situation. Woo-shik added that the justification for the changes, claims of educational discrimination, made it impossible to challenge. Junwoo cut him off, saying he wasn't there to hear whining. Woo-shik then asked what he planned to do. Junwoo replied that he would take the exam because he still hadn't even caught a glimpse of Eunchuk, and he couldn't afford to get expelled. Junwoo then asked Woo-shik if he had any weapons on hand, explaining that he couldn't exactly go into a dungeon unarmed. He told Woo-shik to give him anything lying around, it didn't matter what. Panicked, Woo-shik replied that he didn't have any weapons, explaining that supernatural weapons were too dangerous and no one used them anymore. Junwoo noticed something on Woo-shik's hands and grabbed his arm, accusing him of lying. Woo-shik denied it, insisting he didn't have a single weapon. Junwoo held up the ring he had found on Woo-shik's hand and asked what it was, shocking Woo-shik, who recognized it as the Ring of Patelis. He asked Woo-shik why he still had the ring, and if it hadn't been nearly 50 years. Woo-shik replied that he hadn't even thought about it, and that after he passed away, he had just been wearing it out of habit. Woo-shik then remembered how they met, which made him smile. However, he grabbed the ring and asked Woo-shik why he was spacing out, telling him to stop dawdling and hand it over already. He then walked away, leaving Woo-shik sad. Before leaving completely, he stopped when Woo-shik asked him if he was sure he was okay with it, pointing out that, in terms of skill, the ring wouldn't even rank as E-class. He replied that since it was a dungeon meant for kids' exams, it was likely low level, so it should be more than enough. Woo-shik once again called out to him before he left, advising him that there were more eyes on them now and that he should refrain from entering the chairman's office so often. He simply slammed the door shut and told Woo-shik not to give him a reason to come looking for him, leaving Woo-shik to guess that it might be time for him to step down as chairman. Meanwhile, Junmin was walking through the corridor and knocked on the special department room door. When he entered, he was shocked to see Yoonchae in the middle of the room, working. He asked her what brought her to school, for once, but she simply asked him back what brought him there. Junmin angrily told her that the room wasn't exactly off limits to teachers and to stop acting cocky just because she was a student council member. Yoonki, however, continued typing on her laptop, ignoring Junmin, which infuriated him further. He threw a document onto her table and told her that the first-year monthly evaluation would be held that week, and they had decided to select a field evaluator from among the student council members. She asked what he meant by a field evaluator, but he simply told her that the evaluation was being conducted as a practical exam this time. She stopped typing and looked at him, asking if he was saying the first-year monthly evaluation would be a practical exam. Junmin confirmed it and told her there was no need for her to know the details. He then asked what she thought about it and if she was interested. She replied that she couldn't do it because her subjugation schedule was completely packed until next month. He told her to ask the others, but she responded that the others probably wouldn't be able to do it either. Junmin angrily asked her what he was supposed to do, questioning if he should just skip the practical exam altogether. She calmly replied yes, adding that if the exam couldn't even be held without council members, it would be better to skip it. She pointed out that there was no real benefit for them anyway. She then asked if he was planning to pay her an allowance for participating, reminding him that she wasn't exactly cheap. Junmin shouted her name and angrily asked if being a council member made her think teachers were beneath her. He called her a punk and asked if she thought she became a council member on her own. He reminded her of how much he supported her back in her first year. She told him not to vent his anger on her and calmly asked if she was right that the one who judged him was his grandfather. This shocked Junmin. She then told him he should have handled it better and shouldn't treat student council candidates the way he did. Junmin was asking where she had heard about it when Kim Jong-hyun walked in and greeted them with a "Good morning." Jonghyun noticed Junmin and asked what brought him to the special department room. Junmin explained that they needed someone from the student council to evaluate the first-year practical exam. Jonghyun asked if Yunshai was taking care of it, but Junmin replied that she wasn't because she was busy. Jonghyun then suggested that he could do it, which confused Junmin. Jonghyun asked why he couldn't take on the role since he was a council member too. Junmin knew Jonghyun could be troublesome, but agreed. Before leaving, he told Jonghyun that the paperwork was on the table and to fill it out and bring it to the teacher's office. Jonghyun replied that he got it. Once Eunmin left the room, Euncheck asked Jonghyun if he didn't have a subjugation schedule. He replied that he would just drop out of it, adding that he wasn't as famous as her, so it was fine. She asked why he wanted to step in and help, questioning if he couldn't stand Junmin either. Jonghyun replied that it wasn't about that. It was more about keeping an eye on Junmin because he didn't want a repeat of that incident. She grunted. He added that he was curious about someone's test results, the guy who yelled at her during the public subjugation last time. He mentioned that he heard the guy had joined as a special admission first-year student this time. Yunshi thought about it, suspecting Junwoo might know a lot about subjugation, and wondering if he wasn't a current student. Jonghyun admitted he had looked into it and discovered that, on Junwoo's first day, he completely humiliated Jusuk. Curious, Jonghyun dug deeper and found out that Junwoo was exempt from evaluation, just like her. He then asked if she wasn't curious about what kind of person Junwoo was. A week later, the first-year students gathered in the field. Junwoo, standing among them, noticed that a few students were missing from classes C and D, but classes A and B had full attendance. The students from those classes looked eager, itching to show off their skills. In contrast, it was just him. Suddenly, someone asked if no one else from their class had shown up. Aihun responded, remarking that it was nice not having to wait for her turn. He asked her why she was there, but she retorted by asking why he thought she was there, and told him that she came to take the test. She added that he shouldn't worry because, even though he wouldn't be much help, she didn't plan on being a burden either. Frustrated, he shouted for her to cut the nonsense and asked if she thought the dungeon looked easy just because she had one low-level skill. He warned her to stop while he was still asking nicely, and questioned if she realized the test was designed to make E-class students give up from the start. Yet she calmly responded that she didn't want to give up, and reminded him that she had told him she needed to become a student council member, even if it killed her. She added that if she wanted to become a student council member, she couldn't afford any failing grades. If she gave up on the test, even with supplementary lessons, her score wouldn't be enough. Junwoo was about to say something, but Junmin got everyone's attention and asked if they had already been briefed on the safety rules. He then told them that while the dungeon wasn't extremely dangerous, since the exam was conducted according to strict rules, they needed to stay calm and focused. The students responded with a resounding yes. Jinmin announced that the test would be conducted in a low-risk dungeon of Navy grade or lower. Each group would consist of 8 people, and once teams were decided, they would have an hour for group discussions, based on the provided information. After the discussion, the exam would begin, starting with Class A, while the rest would wait their turn. Jungmin called the student council member assisting with the exam and asked if they knew who he was. Kim Jong-hyun introduced himself, telling the students to take good care of him. Jungmoo thought Jung-hyun's name sounded familiar, but before he could figure it out, Jungmin called him and Ah-hyun over. Jungmin explained that due to the lack of participants from Class D, they would be teamed up with the remaining students from Class D. The chubby man from Class D waved at Junwoo and acted like a bully, calling him a punk, saying they should get along. Ah-hyun muttered that those men seemed to be getting worse at acting, and Junwoo simply nodded in response. However, they overheard another Class D member complaining about being paired with Class E, asking why they had to be teamed up with them of all people. Another classmate remarked that they would just pretend they were missing 2 members. One of the chubby man's minions whispered an apology to him, saying he was going to speak up, but Junwoo ordered him not to and to leave it be, saying it was easier for him if things stayed that way. Junwoo asked the group what the intel on the dungeon was. One of the minions respectfully handed him a tablet with the details, making an awkward silence. Panicking, the minion shouted at him, asking why he was wasting time instead of getting the information, and ordered him to stop holding them back and just look at it. Hours later, it was finally their turn. Youngmin asked if they were ready, and Jonghyun advised them to figure out their route and combat methods as they went along. Youngmin explained that the test would end once they reached the boss room and successfully defeated it. He then smiled and asked if he was right that there was nothing special about the test, staring directly at Jungmoo, who remained silent in the back. Youngmoo said he was fully right, and Jungmoo quietly nodded. The team entered the dungeon, with Junmin shouting for them to begin the test. As they walked inside the dungeon, he was busy examining the details on the tablet. He noted that it was a dungeon with cave-type monsters, a truly classic setup. However, his focus was abruptly broken when he heard a swarm of growls. He looked up to see a horde of monsters rushing at them to attack. One of his minions shouted that monsters were up ahead and to prepare for combat. The team began activating their weapons, but he stayed quiet at the back, observing their skills to see how capable they really were. The blonde man activated his wind magic, Windbreaker. The brown-haired man used his combat sniper weapon, Slingshot. The chubby man activated his combat enhancement ability, Berserker. They launched attacks at the monsters, but the creatures easily dodged every strike, leaving them frustrated as they repeatedly unleashed reckless assaults without landing a single hit. As Junwoo expected, it was a complete mess. He noticed that they were using their skills haphazardly, throwing attacks all over the place without any real understanding of how to utilize them. It wasn't just the Class E students. Those from Class D were just as clueless, swinging their weapons wildly, as if blindly hacking in the dark. It was maddening for him to watch. Amid the chaos, the only person worth considering was Ah-hyun. She was using her fire magic, Azure Flame, and effectively taking down the monsters in her path, burning them to death. Junwoo observed her precise targeting and how she adjusted her strength, using only as much power as necessary. He wondered if she had learned through self-study, since Class E didn't even have monster hunting lessons. He smiled to himself, thinking that for a brat, Ah-hyun was surprisingly skilled. Still, she was at a beginner level. Meanwhile, the Class D members were catching their breath in exhaustion, questioning whether this dungeon was truly low level. They didn't notice a monster creeping up behind them. The creature leapt at one of the men, but Junwoo acted quickly. He picked up a small stone, activated his Ring of Patelis, and used an ultra-high compression strike. With his explosive flick, he killed the monster, using just the small stone. The man was shocked to see it. Junwoo angrily told them this was why they shouldn't exhaust themselves by randomly spamming skills. He warned them to be more cautious. However, instead of appreciating his intervention, they cursed at him, accusing him of trying to earn points the easy way. They shouted for him to stay out of it, further frustrating him. Junwoo seethed at their inability to read the situation. His minions stuttered as they asked him if he was sure they could handle it because it was harder than they expected. Their lack of situational awareness, even after almost being killed, only aggravated him further. They had recklessly burned through their skills like water, and although they were only at the dungeon entrance, their stamina was already nearly depleted. He realized it would be impossible to continue the hunt with such incompetence. The only useful person in the group was Ah-hyun, but relying on one individual to make a difference was unrealistic. He felt like giving up and going ahead with the hunt on his own. Yet, he hesitated. There were eyes on him, watching his every move. More than that, there was something bothering him, something he couldn't quite ignore. Dear Mondra laid him out to rest, but doubts invaded his mind. Healer, he approached Junmin and asked if the dungeon's condition seemed a bit strange, which surprised Junmin. He asked Junwoo what he meant by it. Junwoo explained that while the monsters were at an appropriate low level, there were quite a few of them, and they were still only at the dungeon entrance. Yet the kids were already worn out, and they were nowhere near the boss. This suggested there might be something unusual inside the dungeon, so it would be best to halt the hunt for the day and assess the situation. Junmin scoffed and asked Junwoo if he thought he was good for anything. He accused the transfer student of being arrogant. Junmin added that the decision to stop the hunt was up to him, the supervisor, and warned Junwoo not to overstep his bounds. Frustrated, Junwoo shouted at Junmin, insisting that if things continued as they were, they would end up with an accident. He warned Junmin not to regret his decision later and urged him to stop the hunt immediately. Junmin, irritated, raised his voice to get everyone's attention and told the students to raise their hands if they thought they were too exhausted to continue the exam. He assured them he wasn't planning to push anyone too hard. However, the students merely looked away and stayed silent. Turning back to Junwoo, Junmin asked if he saw the response and told him that if he was too tired to continue, he should just give up on his own and not drag the others into it. He then warned Junwoo that if he caused any more pointless interruptions, he would be disqualified immediately. Someone tapped Junwoo's shoulder. It was Jonghyun, who told him not to worry too much. Jonghyun assured him that if the situation turned dangerous, he would step in. He added that although he might not look like it, he was a student council member and asked Junwoo to trust him, just that once. Junwoo remained silent, staring at Jonghyun. A moment later, they arrived at the boss's room. The students were relieved they had finally made it, but no one wanted to open the door. Junwoo sighed and approached the door, thinking they were already scared before even facing the boss. He asked the group if there were any objections to him opening the door. Ah-hyun stepped forward to join him, suggesting they open it together. He told her it was a door he could handle on his own, but she insisted, saying they should do it together anyway. She asked if she was right in guessing he was probably laughing inside, thinking everyone else was scared except for her. Junwoo just sighed in response. Together, they opened the door to the boss's room. Junwoo was shocked to see the boss lying dead on the ground, covered in blood. The others stared in disbelief. Junmin demanded an explanation, asking Jonghyun if the dungeon was one they had already practiced in. Jonghyun checked the information and confirmed that it was definitely an active dungeon. Approaching the dead boss, Jonghyun examined its blood. His expression shifted as he realized what had happened. He yelled that this was dungeon interference, shouting for everyone to retreat. Confused, the students asked him what he meant. Jonghyun repeated urgently that it was dungeon interference and they needed to retreat immediately. Before he could stand, a massive shadow loomed over him. Junwoo peeked ahead and saw an enormous monster staring down at him. Dungeon interference, the act of a boss from one dungeon driving out a weaker boss and invading its space, was the rarest event that could occur in a low-level dungeon. Junwoo knew, with sinking certainty, that the worst possible situation had unfolded. He recognized that it was a green rank boss, a three-tailed feline. At first glance, he knew it was a disaster. A green rank boss in a purple rank dungeon was completely out of place. Everyone began to flee in fear, but the feline leapt and landed in front of them, blocking the exit. Panic spread through the group, but Jonghyun calmly shouted for everyone to step back behind him. Jonghyun activated his weapon, and the system revealed that he was a C-rank hunter. Shiny gold spikes emerged from his body and hands. His combat enhancement ability, Crazy Porcupine. Jonghyun then called out to him, saying it was impossible to handle a green rank boss alone with his own skills. Jonghyun asked if he could help, shocking and confusing him at the same time. Jonghyun apologized and explained that he had looked into him a bit and figured out that he had been exempt from evaluation judgment. Jonghyun added that this wasn't the time to hide his abilities. Everyone was stunned by this revelation, knowing that only Yuncha had ever received such an exemption at the entire school. He hesitated, remembering what had happened weeks earlier. When Wushik measured his skills, the device had shown that his abilities were unmeasurable. Wushik had anticipated this result and granted him the exemption from evaluation judgment. He had asked Wushik if they could fake the results, saying he didn't want to stand out too much. Wushik had refused, explaining that it was one of the administrative tasks where he had to exercise his authority fairly. Wushik assured him that if he stayed quiet, the teachers would likely ignore it and let it slide. But even as Wushik explained, he had remained silent, realizing that the less attention he drew to himself, the better. Now he cursed his decision to soften his heart back then, but he dashed forward to join Jonghyun, telling himself it was actually for the best. He never planned to let Jonghyun fight alone and decided to support him without drawing too much attention. He said to Jonghyun that he isn't sure he understands what he is saying, but if he's okay with it, he'll help. Jonghyun thanked him and admitted he felt reassured. The feline raised a paw to attack, but before it could strike, Jonghyun spotted an opening. He immediately threw his sharp spikes, successfully hitting the monster in its head and leg. Jonghyun leapt into the air and launched 2 more spikes, piercing the feline's head, causing to scream in pain. The students watched in awe, amazed by Jonghyun's skills. They began to realize that what they had been doing was nothing more than child's play. However, they also noticed that Junwoo didn't appear to be doing anything. To them, it seemed like he was just hopping around. Some began to murmur, questioning whether Junwoo truly deserved to be exempt from evaluation. That is, being exempt. The black-hailed man voiced his suspicions, asking if Jonghyun was giving special treatment to Junwoo by doing all the work. A woman in the group refuted the claim, saying there was no way Jonghyun would do such a thing in this situation. But the man insisted that it was strange, complaining that Junwoo had been getting on his nerves throughout the entire exam. He was starting to get angry, thinking that he couldn't let Junwoo get away with everything and needed to figure something out. On the other hand, Jonghyun was busy attacking the monster, but something felt off. He realized he had never experienced such a smooth battle before, especially against a green rank boss. Fighting it felt almost effortless, as if it were nothing more than a punching bag. It struck him that it seemed like someone was handing the fight to him on a silver platter. Looking to the other side of the battlefield, he noticed Junwoo and wondered if he was responsible. Suddenly, the monster appeared right in front of Jonghyun, raising its claw to strike. Fortunately, Junwoo distracted the creature just in time, hitting it square in the face with his explosive flickstone, allowing Jonghyun to leap away and avoid the attack. It dawned on Jonghyun that every time the monster tried to land an attack, it was interrupted by Junwoo's skill. He recalled something from the Hunter's Manual, a strategy of disrupting a monster's balance at the precise moment it attempts to strike, by targeting its weak spot and breaking its center. However, the manual had noted that this strategy was almost impractical, requiring an in-depth knowledge of the monster's every move and attack pattern. Jonghyun realized that Junwoo was executing this strategy perfectly, all while remaining unnoticed by everyone else. This made Jonghyun question Junwoo's true identity. For now, however, he decided to focus on finishing the hunt. Jonghyun leapt above the monster and launched his largest spike, which pierced through the creature's head. The monster collapsed to the ground, allowing Jonghyun to finally catch his breath. The group was stunned by the scene before breaking into cheers, praising Jonghyun for his skill and exclaiming that they expected no less from a student council member. Junmin smiled, relieved that the incident from 2 years ago hadn't repeated itself. At the same time, he couldn't help but feel smug, believing this was proof that Junwoo had received his evaluation exemption falsely. Junmin decided to use this as leverage to have Junwoo expelled. He called out, warning everyone not to get too close to the boss, because it was still alive and dangerous. Despite the warning, the black-haired man rushed forward, accusing Junwoo of trying to score points for himself. He shouted, claiming Junwoo was taking advantage of the situation and insisting that he deserved the final blow. However, as he approached, the feline opened its eyes and lunged at him, jaws wide. Frozen in shock, the man didn't react. Junwoo shouted at him, calling him an idiot. Fortunately, Junghoon pushed the man out of the way just in time. Unfortunately, in the process, Junghoon lost one of his arms to the monster's bite. Junghoon staggered back, coughing up blood, leaving everyone in the dungeon stunned. He then collapsed to the ground. Despite his heroics, no one moved to help him. Instead, they began to flee in panic. Ah-hyun stood frozen in shock, questioning what she should do. She couldn't fathom how Junghyun acted so decisively in an instant, and she felt helpless. As the feline approached her, she tried to calm herself, reasoning that beast-type monsters were weak against fire, and that her skills should be effective. However, her body wouldn't move. She realized, to her horror, that she was shaking uncontrollably and unable to act. The monster opened its mouth and lunged toward her. In that moment, Junwoo activated his explosive flick, hard knuckle and strike the feline in time, sending the monster with incredible force. She was shocked to see that her savior was Junwoo. The feline slammed down onto the ground, and as Ah-hyun called out to him, Junwoo simply walked past her without a word, heading toward where Jonghyun and the others were. Grabbing the black-haired man by the collar in anger, he furiously shouted at him, warning him to stop messing around and to get to the back with his senior if he didn't want to die. Then, turning to the chubby man, he ordered him to assist and yelled at the others to stay in the corner and not move a muscle. Approaching the feline, Junwoo blamed himself for hesitating earlier. He knew he should have handled it from the start. The feline rose to its feet and swung its sharp claws at him, but he easily dodged the attack. It raised its spiked tails, launching them in his direction, but he evaded them effortlessly while closing the distance. Activating his ultra-high compression strike, Junwoo punched the feline square in the face with his explosive flick skill. The force of his blow sent the creature flying. Before it could recover, Junwoo closed the distance and, with visible anger, repeatedly struck different parts of its body. The sheer force of his attacks left everyone stunned, while Junmin was utterly confused. Moments ago, Junwoo had seemed like a passive observer. Now, he was fighting like a completely different person. Junmin couldn't believe his eyes. This was no joke. He began to wonder if Junwoo's evaluation exemption was genuine after all. At Junwoo's current level, he surpassed even seasoned veteran hunters from the association, all while using an outdated supernatural weapon. Junmin shouted at Junwoo, asking if he knew the dangers of using supernatural weapons, and warned him about the penalties. The feline attacked again, but Junwoo dodged it with ease, ignoring Junmin's warnings. He was fully aware of the risks. Every supernatural weapon had its own unique abilities, activation conditions, and penalties, sometimes even costing the user their life. But Junwoo insisted on using them because of their unmatched power. Unlike the Arc, which was a bracelet integrated with a network and lacked penalties, supernatural weapons maximized the power of a monster's core. They reinterpreted and reworked the core into a form suitable for the hunter's use, making their performance overwhelming. While the Arc's skill replacement system had lowered the barrier to entry for hunters, Junwoo believed it had also made the current generation weaker. That might be fine for now, but if monsters emerged that required the use of supernatural weapons, no one would survive without them. Suddenly, the feline appeared behind Junwoo, its sharp claws ready to strike. Ah-hyun cried out in panic, warning him to watch out. The feline swung his massive claw, but Junwoo vanished, leaving the creature momentarily confused. It was then startled as it felt his presence above it. Junwoo rolled through the air, fist closed, ready to attack, and launched his fist downward with fury. His explosive flick struck the feline directly on the head. The immense force of the attack created a thick fog that engulfed everyone in the area. As the fog slowly began to clear, the group anxiously waited to see what had happened. When the mist finally dissipated, they saw Junwoo standing tall, facing the feline. The creature was on the ground, growling in pain. He approached the feline, which was visibly shaken to see him. The penalty of the Patelis ring, known as the Devourer of Fear, activated as the creature quivered in fear. He knew the origins of Patelis, a green-rank monster he had hunted in the distant past. That monster was infamous for its ability to grow impossibly strong if even a single person felt fear in its presence, earning it the title Devourer of Fear. His ring, crafted from the core of that monster, retained the same trait. The penalty was absolute. The first to feel fear would die, adhering to the simple rule that the one who loses their resolve dies. Junwoo then rushed over to the group, reassuring himself that the ring's effect worked only on monsters of green rank or lower. He quickly asked Ah-hyun about Jonghyun's condition. The chubby man explained that he had tried to stop the bleeding, but it hadn't worked. Observing Jonghyun's shallow breathing and significant blood loss, Junwoo realized they needed to act immediately. Requesting the walkie-talkie to Junmin, who seemed hesitant and confused. Frustrated, Junwoo demanded the control center channel to report the situation, pointing out the urgency. Startled, Junmin passed him the walkie-talkie, and Junwoo immediately contacted the control center. A voice on the other end identified themselves as Control Team 3 from Seoul headquarters and asked for the report. Junwoo responded by summarizing the situation. The final training group had encountered dungeon interference, escalating the rank from purple to green. There were casualties, and Jonghyun was in B3 condition due to severe blood loss. He informed the operator that they were heading out immediately and requested a rescue team. The operator confirmed that the rescue team would be dispatched and asked for the identity of the injured. Junwoo replied that the injured was Kim Jonghyun, a third-year student council member at Hunter Academy, and instructed them to inform his guardian. Junmin, clearly surprised, questioned how an E-class special admission student with no formal hunting course experience could know the injury codes and the reporting system. When Junwoo ignored him, Junmin's frustration turned to anger. He demanded to know who Junwoo really was. Without responding, Junwoo struck him across the face, sending him to the ground. As Junmin held his face in pain, Junwoo berated him, accusing him of failing as a supervisor and being incapable of assessing the situation. Junmin, still stunned, retorted that a student had no right to speak to a teacher that way. Junwoo's with unrelenting gaze dared to Junmin say one more word, leaving Junmin too intimidated to respond further. A moment later, the group emerged from the dungeon. Junwoo watched as the medics carried Jonghyun away. Woo-shik approached him, noting that it seemed Jungwoo hadn't been able to hold back. Jungwoo acknowledged this, adding that no one had died as a result. Woo-shik then reminded him that his actions would not go unnoticed. The teachers, the parents, and even Sukdu would soon hear about this. Junwoo, however, dismissed the warning and addressed Woo-shik seriously. He pointed out that the school had sent unprepared students into a dungeon, resulting in a 19-year-old losing his arm. He questioned how such negligence could be justified. Woo-shik, visibly horrified, had no response. Junwoo added that if something like this ever happened again, he wouldn't stand idly by. He warned Woo-shik not to give him a reason to revert to his active days. The next day, Junmin was in the chairman's office. Woo-shik asked him if he had said there were no issues during the test, and reminded him that this time he had forcibly changed it to a practical test. Junmin replied that the practical test was implemented to resolve the educational inequality in Class 1E, and that there was no connection whatsoever between the decision and the incident. Woo-shik told Junmin that even in such a situation he was still making excuses, and shouted, asking if Junmin thought he wouldn't know that the test was intended to get rid of Kim Jun-woo. This made Junmin surprised, because Woo-shik brought it up so directly, making him wonder if there could be someone more intimidating than Minister Oh Myung-chin. Yet Junmin thought there was no way like that. Junmin then explained to Woo-shik that the test followed all procedures without any issues. At no point was anyone forced into subjugation or exposed to danger. He added that even the dungeons used for the test were approved by the association's control team, and all procedures followed the manual. Woo-shik furiously hit the table, and shouted again that the problem was the reckless change to a practical test. He emphasized that a score of at least 60 was required to avoid failing the test, and that he was fully aware regular special admission students wouldn't stand a chance. Junmin told Woo-shik that Jun-woo wasn't an ordinary special admission student. He asked if Woo-shik hadn't received an exemption from evaluation judgment, and reminded him that Jun-woo had achieved the best performance in that test as well. This left Woo-shik speechless. Junmin reiterated that the incident was simply an unfortunate accident caused by a natural disaster, known as dungeon interference. More importantly, he pointed out that Woo-shik had also approved the test, which left Woo-shik even more silent. Defeatedly, Woo-shik replied that he understood, and ordered Junmin to prepare a report on the incident and bring it in by the end of the day. He added that they would review it with the control team and check the body cam footage before making a decision. Junmin acknowledged this, and Junmin walked away with a smile on his face, thinking that he had once again won. Before leaving, Woo-shik told Junmin to make one thing clear. What he feared was not Minister Myung-jin, but Kim Jun-woo. Even now, the Kim Jun-woo from over 40 years ago was the one he feared the most. Junmin asked him what he meant, but Woo-shik simply told him that if something like this happened again, he wouldn't be able to do anything for him. So, Young-min then came out of the chairman's office and exhaled in relief. He called Myung-jin, who asked him how it went. Jung-min replied that it looked like it would be taken care of internally, to which Myung-jin responded that it was a bit of a relief, and fortunate that Jung-hyun only got slightly injured. Myung-jin then asked Jung-min if Jung-hyun's father was a police officer, because he had heard that Jung-hyun's father had been dismissed last time for corruption charges. Junmin confirmed this, and Myungjin commented that if that was the case, it looked like they wouldn't be blaming him for the incident. Myungjin added that Jonghyun wasn't even an official candidate from the start, and it was thanks to him that Jonghyun was admitted. So Jonghyun should be thankful instead. Youngmin then apologized to Myungjin about the special admission student matter and reported that Junwoo's abilities were not as expected. Myungjin asked if the student truly had the abilities to justify their admission, but before Junmin could reply, Myungjin got straight to the point. He told Junmin that as a member of the Parents Association, he believed the candidates for the first-year student council had already been determined, and asked for Junmin's opinion. Youngmin stopped for a moment in fear and replied that it was exactly what he believed. Youngjin then told him that he trusted Youngmin to take care of it properly, and that he had worked hard, so he shouldn't slack off. He added that Youngmin should keep paying attention, even though he was probably getting tired of teaching at that point. Youngmin simply replied to leave it to him, which Myungjin agreed to, and suggested they should grab lunch sometime. Junmin then hung up the phone, wondering if they were seriously suggesting that Junwoo was at the level of a student. He knew that Junwoo wasn't on a student's level anymore. He was stronger than most veteran hunters. However, Junwoo also realized this was another chance he had somehow been given, so he couldn't afford to mess it up. He resolved to bring down Junwoo, no matter what it took. Meanwhile, at the hospital, a nurse told Junwoo that it would sting. When she cleaned his wound, he screamed loudly in pain. After finishing, the nurse reminded him not to lie down until it dried, and to call her if it started bleeding again, before walking away. Payan teased him, saying he was being such a baby over a minor wound. She added that she couldn't believe he had handled a green rank boss on his own. Junwoo just told her to shut up, insisting that pain was still pain. He began to wonder if it was because it had been a while since he used a supernatural weapon, or if his body had changed. Noting that he wasn't like he used to be, until the moment of her death, he had had no relatives to worry about, as the Wizard King was dead. Junwoo then told her that she kept showing up every day and annoying him. Frustrated, he shouted at her to stop coming. Ah-hyun calmly responded that she would cry out if he promised to help her. Annoyed, he asked her if she was seriously still talking about joining the student council, and how many times he had told her that whether she joined the student council or not had nothing to do with him. He stressed that he didn't have the time to help her, which he insisted wasn't even on the forefront. Honghyun fell silent for a moment, but someone in another bed spoke up, commenting that joining the student council wasn't going to be easy. Ah-hyun turned to him and asked if he had just been moved to their hospital room, and how he was feeling. Jonghyun replied that he didn't think he was going to die, but it hurt like hell. Ah-hyun asked him if he had heard that the guy he saved had dropped out. Jonghyun nodded, saying he'd heard the guy laughed at the day immediately following the practical exam. Frustrated, Junwoo commented that when someone saves your life, the least you can do is say thank you, instead of cowardly running away. Jonghyun then reassured him that it was enough. Both of them survived, which was what mattered. The other patient argued that Jonghyun's body ended up like this, and he asked if Jonghyun didn't think he was being a little too optimistic. Jonghyun just smiled softly and said his father used to tell him, "As long as you don't die, you'll get through anything." He added that he didn't die, so somehow it would all work out in the end. He smiled back, thinking that at first, he thought Jonghyun was shady when he heard Jonghyun had been digging into his background. But to sacrifice his arm to save a junior? Even 40 years ago, guys like Jonghyun were rare. Ah-hyun then asked Jonghyun what he meant earlier about becoming a student council member being tough. Jonghyun replied that it was exactly what he said. It would be difficult. She asked if it was because she was in Class E, but Jonghyun denied this, and asked if they had ever heard of the Parents Association. Jonghyun agreed, and she whispered that it didn't sound like an ordinary parent group, and Jonghyun agreed. He explained that there were a total of 5 first-year members in the Parents Association, and those parents had 5 children. The student council membership quota per grade was also set at 5. He asked them what they thought that meant, shocking both of them. Pyongyun continued to explain that the Parents Association was a group of influential parents who had already predetermined their children to be student council members. Ah-hyun asked if Jonghyun was part of it too, but he shouted back no, saying he was just a backup candidate who only got in because a position opened up. Junwoo asked Jonghyun if this meant that whether it was the Parents Association or the Green Mothers Group or whatever, they pre-selected candidates ahead of time and got rid of anyone they didn't approve of. Jonghyun nodded. Junwoo then asked Jonghyun if there had been students who died during the process. This shocked Ah-hyun, but Jonghyun just asked him what he thought. Jonghyun then told Ah-hyun that as her senior, it felt a bit awkward to say it, but she never knew what might happen. He advised her to give up on becoming a student council member. Ah-hyun shouted that she couldn't give up. She asked Jonghyun if he was saying it was okay to decide the outcome in advance and harm other kids. She reminded them that someone might even get hurt or die because of it. Approaching Junwoo, she asked if he thought the situation was absolutely ridiculous. Junwoo remained quiet. He knew the corruption within the school was endangering students' lives, and he wanted to take action. However, For him, the issue of Gigantiana's revival was more urgent. He reminded Ahyun that he had told her repeatedly that he didn't have the capacity to worry about anything else right now, not until he met Go Eunchae. Junghyun overheard him and commented that it was great timing because Eunchae had said she would be stopping by to visit him today. Neither of them noticed that Eunchae was already standing behind them. Eunchae approached them, leaving him in disbelief at how things suddenly seemed to be working out. He stood up to meet her and stopped in front of her, saying it had been a while since their last encounter. However, she walked right past him and headed toward Ahyun. Ahyun greeted Eunchae, addressing her as senior, and said it had been a while. She asked if it had been 2 years since they last saw each other. Ahyun reminded Eunchae that she had once told her to give up on attending the Hunter Academy, and teasingly asked what Eunchae planned to do now that she was already enrolled. Eunchae remained silent, staring intensely at Eunchae, creating a palpable tension between them. Junwoo, unsure of the history between the two girls, noticed a serious grudge lingering in the air. He could also tell that Eunchae held a strong disfavor toward him. He wondered if Ahyun's fixation on becoming a student council member was somehow connected to their relationship. Ahyun broke the silence by walking away, saying that since there didn't seem to be much else to say, she would head out first. When Junwoo asked if she was leaving, she replied that his situation seemed worse than hers. However, Ahyun froze mid-step when Eunchae suddenly asked if she was hurt. Ahyun angrily turned back, glaring at Eunchae, and continued walking, asking why Eunchae was pretending to care at that point. Junghyun awkwardly laughed, trying to diffuse the tension, and thanked Yoonkai for visiting him. He then asked if he was correct in thinking that the two of them already knew each other, but as Junghyun noticed their intense stares, he remarked that their first impression didn't seem great. Feeling overwhelmed, he joked that he might suffocate and die if he stayed any longer. Junghyun awkwardly excused himself, suggesting they take their time to talk comfortably, and announced he'd go for a short walk. As he headed out, he casually told Eunchae they should catch up outside later. Eunchae followed him, leaving Junwoo stunned and speechless. In the corridor, Yoonka directly asked Junwoo what issue he had with her. He didn't respond immediately, unsure of how to start the conversation since he hadn't planned what to say once they met. He debated bluntly asking her to arrange a meeting with Sukdu, but decided he should start by expressing admiration instead, though he doubted it would help build a friendship. Yoonhyun then brought up the exam, mentioning that she'd heard he had tackled the subjugation solo. He replied that Yoonhyun did most of the work and he'd just finished it off. Yoonhyun countered, saying she knew there was no way Junghyun could have taken down a boss of that level alone. She added that while panic would have been understandable, he, a first-year special admission student, had handled the situation impressively. She remarked that his advice to her back then clearly wasn't just for show. Junwoo shrugged, saying Junghyun didn't like the situation, but she seemed a little full of herself. His comment irritated Eunchae, who asked if he was trying to provoke her. He clarified that provoking her wasn't his intention, and explained that he had simply asked to meet because he wanted them to get along. Yoonka asked if that meant he wanted to become a student council member and was just trying to build connections. She added that with his skills, he wouldn't even need to bother with something like that. He started to explain that he didn't care about the student council, but she cut him off. Angrily, she told him that no matter what he did to become a student council member, he shouldn't involve Ahyun. He sighed in frustration and told her that both the younger sister and the older one were just the same. They never listened to anyone. Eunchae, puzzled, asked him what he meant by that. He replied that whether it was about getting involved or not, the one who kept endlessly talking about wanting to become a student council member was Go Ahyun. This revelation shocked her. He added, putting the council matter aside, that he had some unfinished business with her grandfather. Suddenly, Eunchae forcefully pinned him against the wall and demanded to know what was going on, asking if Ahyun had requested something from him. Frustrated, he shouted, asking what the heck she was talking about, but she yelled at him to speak up properly. She pressed him further, asking if Ahyun had asked for help with running for a council position, or if she wanted him to take revenge for her. He cursed loudly and placed one foot on the wall, then forcefully kicked off, pushing Yoonchae to the other side. However, she quickly stopped herself from being pushed back, raised her knee, and attempted to hit him with it. She followed with a punch, but he managed to dodge and jump away. He noticed that her moves were completely different from last time. At this level, her skills were quite advanced, even for members of the dungeon management team. He was caught off guard when she appeared beneath him, launching her fist upward. Though he dodged her attack easily, he noted her incredible speed and realized he had seriously underestimated her. As he avoided her strikes, he wondered why her performance during the last public subjugation hadn't reflected this skill level. Bending to avoid another attack, he quickly removed the bandage from his hand and threw it at her eyes to block her vision. Taking the opportunity, he forcefully pushed her and pinned her against the wall, aiming his fist at her face. Calmly, she asked if he wasn't breaking the rules. He retorted by asking her back if rules even existed in this school. Eunchae remarked that for a special admission student, he was adapting quickly. He countered, saying she was doing better than he had expected, then asked her what had happened during the last subjugation. Instead of answering, she simply reminded him that she had told him before. The field wasn't like how he imagined it. Unbeknownst to them, they had drawn the attention of other patients in the hallway. She added that subjugation wasn't just about execution, but about how much one could excite the crowd. This statement angered him, and she noticed his reaction, asking what he wanted. He replied that it wasn't anything major. He just needed her to talk to her grandfather. All he wanted was for her to get a few weapons from the support headquarters. Surprised, she told him it was impossible, which shocked him. He argued that he had heard the weapons were just for display, and that as the director of the support headquarters, her grandfather could surely allocate a few. She firmly refused, stating that convincing her grandfather was impossible, no matter what the request was. He pressed her, asking what she meant by that, but their conversation was interrupted by a nurse rushing over and shouting at them for causing a commotion. Yunke pushed his hand away and walked off. He called after her, telling her that they would see each other again, but she responded coldly, saying she hoped he wouldn't show up in front of her anymore. He smirked and told her it would be difficult, especially since she was Sokdu's granddaughter. He then headed back to his hospital room. Jung-hyun asked him how it went and if he had managed to have a good talk. He replied that it hadn't gone well, to which Jung-hyun responded that he figured it would turn out like that. He then asked Jung-hyun if Euncha's relationship with her grandfather wasn't that great. Jung-hyun hesitated, wondering how to put it, before explaining that it wasn't exactly good, but not bad either. It was more of a formal relationship. He asked if that meant it didn't feel like a typical family, and Jung-hyun confirmed this, asking what they had talked about. He explained that he had asked Euncha to request a personal favor from her grandfather, but she had refused, saying it was impossible. Jung-hyun told him that made sense, as Yoon-kyun had never asked her grandfather for anything before, adding that the old man, Sokdu, was quite intimidating. He asked Jung-kyun what he meant by that, but Jung-kyun replied that it wasn't something he should discuss there. Jung-kyun then teasingly told him it was his fault. If he made a one-sided request like that, of course she wouldn't agree. He asked if he should have at least offered her money, which made Jung-hyun laugh even more. Jung-hyun then asked why Frey Euncha would need money from him. Jung-hyun turned serious and said there might be something that could catch her interest. When he asked what it was, Jung-hyun replied that it would be Ah-hyun dropping out. He explained that while he wasn't sure why, Ah-hyun really seemed to dislike Ah-hyun being at the academy. He nodded, recalling how quickly Ah-hyun had acted earlier. Jung-hyun then asked if he thought it was possible, suggesting that if they could persuade Ah-hyun to drop out, Yoonja might reconsider. Before he could continue, he was silenced by Junwoo, who motioned for him to be quiet. They heard footsteps walking away from outside the room. A moment later, outside the hospital, Ah-hyun sat on a bench, lost in thought. She recalled hearing Jung-hyun tell Junwoo that if they could persuade her to drop out, Eunchen might consider it. Ah-hyun reflected on everything she had done to become a student council member. Her sole reason was to get revenge on that old man, Ah-suk-du. But deep down, she knew she felt famed. It was more than just revenge. With her abilities, simply graduating felt impossible, let alone becoming a student leader, with several thousand members fighting over who would gain access to the apartment. This was why she needed Kim Junwoo, a first year who was far beyond the level of his class. If Junwoo helped her, it might be possible. She had asked him several times, but now she thought sadly that there was really no reason for him to help her. Convincing herself that it was okay, she told herself that this was just how things always were. She resolved that, this time too, she had no choice but to try and handle it on her own. As she sat there, someone approached her. It was Junwoo. He asked who she thought she was, sitting there acting all pathetic when she was still wet behind the ears, and then asked if she wasn't heading home. Startled, she simply replied that she was about to go now. He sat down beside her, saying he was just asking in case, and then asked if she was thinking about dropping out. Shocked, she stuttered and then shouted, asking why she would do something like that. He calmly responded that he knew she'd say that and smiled softly. Then, with a casual tone, he told her that he had fought with Yoonti earlier. She asked him what they were talking about and if they had really fought. He replied that they had gone at it, adding that Yoon-chae had some serious skills. He continued, saying that thanks to their fight, things had become a bit more complicated. Their first impression was already a mess, and now they had fought a second time. He then mentioned that he was considering changing his approach, abandoning persuasion, and resorting to threats instead. Surprised, she told him that was gross, and asked if she was right in assuming he was joking about threatening Eunchae. He replied seriously that he wasn't joking, and that he was planning to start finding Eunchae's weakness. She asked him what kind of weakness someone like Eunchae could possibly have. He pointed directly at her, and tells her she's Eunchae's weakness. He told her to think about it. Eunchae was a student leader and a top-ranking hunter even before graduating. On top of that, her grandfather was a major figure in the association. He asked why someone like Eunchae would care about someone from Class E like her. He added that no matter what she did, she could never even come close to Eunchae's level. His words hit her hard, as she knew deep down that they were true. He continued, saying there was a reason she shouldn't be at the Hunter Academy. For example, her presence could pose a threat to Inchunki's future career as a hunter. Or maybe Inchunki might fear that someday she could take her place. Shocked, she spat out the drink she had just taken. She argued that she at least knew how to objectively assess herself, and that what he was saying didn't make any sense. He told her she just needed to make it make sense, confusing her even more. He explained that he would make it make sense, enough for her to threaten Unki's position and expose her weakness. Speechless and shocked, she asked him if he thought she wasn't confident. At first she seemed unsure, but then she seriously considered it. After a moment, she shouted confidently that she can do it. Her confidence made him smile. He stood up and told her their conversation was over. He added that there wasn't much time and warned her in advance. Starting tomorrow, they were going all in. He said their goal was to secure her position as a candidate for the student council before the start of the second semester. She asked if she had understood him correctly. He confirmed she had, and added that one of the parents' association members, or whatever group controlled the council, needed to be taken down. As he walked away, he told her he was heading out now. She called after him, and when he turned, he saw her with happy tears in her eyes, thanking him. He sighed and continued walking without a word. Meanwhile, in a sushi restaurant, a man asked another if Tae-hung was doing well. The other man laughed, saying, "That's how sons are." He added that he was a bit worried because Tae-hung had gotten soft after entering Class A. The men continued their conversation, bragging about Tae-hee's ranking 5th in the practical exam and comparing their children's achievements. Their chatter was interrupted when someone entered the room. It was Junmin, who apologized for being late. One of the men mentioned that he'd heard about the accident during the exam and asked if Junmin was okay. Junmin replied that he was fine and that, fortunately, the situation had been handled well. The man expressed relief, saying he had been worried that the accident might cause issues with the candidate selection. Junmin sat down in the middle of the Parents Association's first-year gathering meeting. With a professional demeanor, he asked if they should get to the main topic. Junmin addressed the group, stating that with the first semester nearly over, aside from the final exam, it was time to begin preparing for the post-admissions process. He urged them to get started, pulling documents from his bag, and explained that once they had reviewed the documents, they should sign them. He first handed a document to Jung Hung, the father of Jung Tae-hung from Class A, and CEO of Gravity, a company responsible for developing the integrated subjugation support system and infrastructure for ARC. Next, he gave a document to Lee Kyung-sik, the father of Lee Soo-young from Class A, and vice president of Dungeon Daily, the sole media outlet covering subjugation events. The third document went to Hwang Chang-soo, the father of Hwang Ji-yeon from Class B, and the sole branch chief of the Acres Guild, a leading company in the private hunter industry. He then presented one to Park Mi-yeon, the mother of Jeom Chan-hyuk from Class B, and team leader of Operations Team 2, under the sole branch of the Paranormal Resource Management Association. Finally, he handed a document to Oh Myung-jin, the father of On Jo-suk from Class E, and the minister of the Subjugation Bureau in South Korea. Jinmin encouraged them to take their time signing and invited any questions. Jung-hoon raised a concern, mentioning the recent practical exam and stating that he had heard the special admissions student completed the subjugation alone. He asked if there was any chance the student might apply as an additional candidate, shocking everyone present. Junmin replied that Junwoo had shown no interest in running as a candidate so far. One parent voiced confidence that their children wouldn't be overshadowed if he did. However, Junmin stated, as a teacher, that the likelihood of Junwoo running was very high, surprising the group further. Youngjin seriously questioned Junmin, asking if he had a countermeasure in place. Junmin confidently assured them that he did, and that they didn't need to worry. He promised to strictly manage anything regarding additional candidates, and reiterated his commitment to ensuring that every single one of their children would secure a position as a student council member. Days later, John Woo entered his classroom, startled by someone shouting his arrival. His classmates rushed to him, bombarding him with questions about his discharge, recovery, and health. They praised him, claiming the recent practical test would have gone terribly without him, and asked how he managed to succeed. Some questioned how he had done it with unregistered skills, leaving him panicking and wondering what was going on. He noticed the end-of-month evaluation results on the board and saw his name in first place. The realization left him stunned, thinking it was unbelievable. His classmates continued to gush about his abilities, mentioning that even Chonghyun had been seriously injured. They expressed regret for not talking to him sooner and invited him to join them. Annoyed, Junwoo sternly stopped them, warning them to stop pretending to know him and to leave him alone. His words left everyone silent, shocked, and fearful. He then approached Ah-hyun and questioned her about the situation, stating that Junmin would never give him a perfect score. Ah-hyun admitted she wasn't sure about the specifics, but didn't believe the scores had been tampered with. This reassured Junwoo somewhat, as it seemed the results were legitimate. He asked if she was following his instructions properly. She confirmed but expressed frustration about focusing solely on physical training. Jinwoo explained that strength and stamina were the foundations of combat, and that skills and weapons were meaningless without the strength to fight effectively. She responded that she understood but reminded him that he still needed to prepare for the upcoming final exams. He asked her about the format of the finals and whether it would involve another dungeon raid like the last test. She explained that it would consist of a written exam and sparring. He found the curriculum strange and wondered about the point of students sparring against each other. However, he remarked that it was simpler that way, as she would only need to defeat one person. Confused, she asked who that person would be. He replied that it would be Oh Jusok, surprising her. He explained that Jusok was likely one of the candidates pre-selected by the Parents Association, given his father's position as the minister of the Subjugation Bureau. He recounted how his conflict with Jusok had led to that snake-like teacher Junmin scheming something, ultimately creating chaos. As we researched the person's life of Oh Jusok, Min presented something. He emphasized that such incidents wouldn't be possible without the influence of the Parents Association. He asked if it was true that student council members were shortlisted based on midterm, monthly, and final exam results. She confirmed, and he pointed out that Yo Tian Yo, who had been disciplined twice and hadn't even participated in the latest end-of-month evaluation. This, he argued, meant that Yo Tian was barely making the cutoff for the first round. He added that as long as she could surpass Yo Tian, she had a good chance of making it through the first selection. She hesitated, and he stared at her seriously, asking if she lacked confidence. She stuttered, saying she would try, but he pressed her, asking what she meant by try. She shouted that she would do it, and would make it happen. Satisfied, he told her that starting tomorrow, they would incorporate martial arts training into her regimen. She agreed. He then suggested that she ask her friends if they knew of any other candidates. Embarrassed, she stammered that she didn't have any friends. He looked at her with pity, which irritated her. She snapped, reminding him that he didn't have any friends either. He teasingly asked why she thought he didn't have friends, and claimed he had Wushik. However, before he could name anyone else, he remembered a certain person's words about figuring things out, as long as they were alive, causing him to stop mid-sentence. She asked what was wrong, but he dismissed it as nothing, then looked out the window. Meanwhile, in the hospital, Younghyun lay in bed, bored and missing the company of his juniors. He considered watching something on YouTube, but was reminded once again of his missing arm when he tried to grab his phone. His father entered the room, carrying a basket of fresh fruit. Junghyun greeted him with a smile and asked why he wasn't at work. His father explained that he had finished early after speaking with his team leader so he could visit. His father asked how he was feeling and whether he was getting better. Junghyun replied that he didn't feel like he was on the verge of death anymore. His father expressed relief and reminded him that his grandfather had also lost his right arm during his subjugation. Despite the setback, his grandfather had never given up and had become an even greater hunter afterward. His father added that while training his remaining left arm, his grandfather would often say, "As long as they're alive, they'll find a way." Junghyun completed the phrase, and his father praised him for remembering. His father then took out some documents from his jacket, explaining that he had secretly investigated something. Handing the papers to Junghyun, he claimed they could prove the Parents Association's involvement in the incident from 2 years ago. Junghyun questioned why his father was still pursuing this matter. His father insisted it was real this time, and urged him to look at the documents, and immediately gave them to Junghyun. His father mentioned the abrupt change to the originally planned test the day before the incident, and speculated that if they could find evidence of bribery by the Parents Association, it would be their downfall. Hunyun, visibly upset, shouted at his father to stop. He reminded his father that he had been fired from the police for investigating the Parents Association, and asked why he couldn't let it go. He accused his father of causing their family to lose everything, and demanded to know what more he was trying to achieve. His words shocked his father. As his father tried to calm him down, Junghyun walked away, stating that it was time to accept reality. He argued that no matter how much his father investigated, he couldn't take down the Parents Association, just as he himself could never become a hunter again. His father tried to invoke his grandfather's determination again, but Junghyun pleaded for him to stop. He questioned who would believe a story from over 40 years ago, and left the room, leaving his father alone. The next day at the Hunter Academy, Junwoo asked his minions if they had found anything. The chubby man replied that there didn't seem to be anything noteworthy in classes C or D for now. Junwoo then asked him about the rest, to which the chubby man awkwardly admitted that it was a bit difficult to directly ask people in classes A and B. Junwoo, trying to figure out who was planning to run for the student council, began doubting the competence of his minions. He pulled something out of his wallet, praised them for their efforts, and handed them some money, telling them to treat themselves and their friends to something nice. The chubby man hesitated, saying it wasn't necessary, but Junwoo insisted, handing over the money and telling them to accept it with gratitude when an adult offered it. As the chubby man took the money and thanked him, They noticed it was just 1,001. Junwoo told them not to feel burdened, adding that it was enough if they were getting snacks together. The three of them walked away, staring at the 1,001 bill in confusion. Junwoo proudly watched them, reminiscing about his younger days, when a single 1,001 bill made him feel like he owned the world. Shaking off the nostalgia, he decided to focus on what he could do, beating Yusuk in the final exam. For the written portion, he could only hope Ahyun studied hard, knowing that the sparring test was the crucial part, where he needed to widen the gap. Walking calmly down the corridor, Junwoo acknowledged Yusuk's abilities as pathetic, but reminded himself to be prepared for anything, especially given the unpredictable nature of the Parents' Association. He also recognized the challenge of finding a suitable place to train Ahyun, as asking Wooshik for help would likely draw unwanted attention. His thoughts were interrupted when someone called out to him. He opened his eyes to see Yonghyun waving enthusiastically. Yonghyun greeted him, saying how surprising it was to meet again like that. Junwoo asked if Yonghyun had been discharged, to which Yonghyun replied that he was only visiting to take care of some business at the faculty office before heading back. Jonghyun then remembered Junwoo had mentioned helping Ahyun and asked how it was going. Awkwardly laughing, Junwoo suggested they talk somewhere private. Minutes later, they were on the exit staircase, where Junwoo shared his plan. Jonghyun asked if it was for sparring practice. He then confirmed that if Class E wanted to use the gym, there were all kinds of restrictions, such as limited time slots and caps on the number of participants. Junwoo acknowledged this as part of why he was concerned. Jonghyun asked if Junwoo was really planning to challenge the Parents' Association, surprising him. Junwoo questioned why Jonghyun brought that up, and Jonghyun explained that it wouldn't be easy and might even risk their lives. Calmly, Junwoo replied that it had been the same not long ago, but they had made it through together, and would figure things out again. Junhyun agreed, acknowledging that they had all made it back alive. However, he grew somber as he recalled the dungeon incident from 2 years ago. Saddened, he wondered aloud how things might have turned out if he had been there back then. Confused, Junwoo asked what he meant, but Jonghyun brushed it off, saying it was nothing. Changing the subject, Jonghyun asked if it was true that Junwoo didn't have a suitable training place. When Junwoo confirmed, Jonghyun surprised him by suggesting they use his gym instead. Meanwhile, in the counseling room, Junmin faced Jusuk and informed him that he was currently the one in the most danger. Jusuk, shocked, stuttered while asking what Junmin meant. Junmin explained that Junwoo might run for the student council position. Jusuk was horrified to hear this and asked if Junmin was referring to the special admissions student Kim Junwoo. Junmin confirmed and asked if Jusuk was aware that Junwoo had been deemed exempt from evaluation. Jusuk denied knowing this and said he had heard rumors, but it was hard to believe that a specially admitted student would be exempt. Junmin revealed that Junwoo had single-handedly taken down a green-ranked boss, which he had witnessed personally, leaving no doubt about Junwoo's abilities. Jusuk was speechless and began shaking in fear. Stuttering, he said that the student council positions had already been decided. Junmin, however, reminded him that there was a limit to how much his parents could protect him, pointed out Jusuk's poor midterm grades and inability to participate in the end-of-month evaluation, warning that at this rate, Junwoo would overtake him in the finals. Jusuk, frustrated, shouted that Junmin should ensure the teachers didn't allow it to happen. Junmin calmly responded that grades were crucial and they couldn't afford to fall behind in that regard. Jusuk felt betrayed, recalling how Junmin had promised during the admission orientation that he would guarantee his position as a student council member. Junmin reassured Jusuk, telling him not to be discouraged and reminding him that he had the exam papers. Jusuk confirmed he had them, and Junmin instructed him to memorize them thoroughly and ensure no one found out. He emphasized the importance of the sparring portion of the finals. Jusuk, remembering Junwoo's fierce aura, expressed doubt about his chances. Junmin assured him he had a plan. Reaching into his coat pocket, he placed an arc on the table, explaining that it was an unregistered arc with rank B skills. Jusuk was shocked and amazed, knowing that most students' arcs were ranked much lower. Junmin explained that the arc was the minimum grade used by active hunters, and that Younghoon should use it during the sparring match. Younghoon smiled, calling it a total cheat code, and asked where Youngmin had obtained it. Jungmin replied that it had belonged to his father and had been processed into an arc with Younghoon's help. Jusuk vaguely recalled Junmin mentioning his father's involvement with the subjugation management team, but Junmin dismissed it as a short stint. He added that he had called a senior to help Jusuk adapt to the new skills. When the door opened, Jusuk was shocked to see Go Inche entering the room. Jusuk couldn't believe Inche was helping him, and exclaimed how amazing it was. Junmin explained that he had made a special request, and instructed Jusuk to listen carefully to his senior. Internally, Yunmin hadn't expected Yunchek to agree, but thought Yunmu's overconfidence might have rubbed her the wrong way. Junmin stood, telling them to discuss the training schedule and methods, as he had other matters to attend to. Before leaving, he tapped Yunchek's shoulder. asking her to take good care of Josuk, to which she simply replied, yes. In the gym, the sound of punches echoed as Junwoo attacked Akyun, lecturing her to use space wisely, keep her eyes on her opponent, watch their movements, and predict their next attack. Akyun struggled, unable to counter and barely managing to block his strikes. Frustrated, she shouted for him to stop, accusing him of being too harsh, and asking if he had something against her since it was just practice. Junwoo reminded her that he had warned they would train seriously. She argued that if he was going all out, he should teach her how to use skills